Our power is in our voice. Our power, it's in our thoughts. Our power is in our actions. Our power, it's already innate in who we are. We are the earth. We are the sky. We are the trees. We are our ancestors. We are the future generations. We are all that is.
Hey, make some noise if you're happy to be here at the People's Reset in Morelia, Mexico. Thank you guys all at home for being back. We are so stoked. This is the second session of day one. Who went to a workshop for lunch? Anybody go check out anything cool? Shout out. What did you do? Visual tools. Anything? Body sovereignty, embodied sovereignty. Anything else? Yoga. Awesome. Cool stuff. That's what you're missing if you're at home. We want you to be here. Come hang out with us in person. Come next year. Make some noise for the people at home. We've got more than 15 countries tuned in right now. We're so grateful to all of you at home. You really do make this a worldwide international event, but we always want to try to create a little bit of FOMO and have you here next year. So all the workshops, they're obviously not on the stream. The concerts, they're not on the stream. The community networking, it'll be on the stream, but it's going to be a little different experience for you. So if you really want to get the full People's Reset experience, come next year. We got big things planned for 2026. And we will be making an announcement later this week about an event that we're going to be doing in Florida that we'll tell you about soon for those who feel safe going into the U.S. We'll talk about that later. But right now, before we get to the rest of our presentations, we're going to start the afternoon with a community networking session. You know, We've tried different things throughout the years. Sometimes we do networking every day. Sometimes we try it at different points. But today, this will be one of the main networking sessions. Then tomorrow night, there's going to be another one that we'll tell you about tomorrow. But for now, I want to invite Lainey Liberty back up to the stage, and she's going to help us get to know each other and get out of our shell. Please give her a round of applause.
Thank you. And if you are watching at home, sorry, this isn't going to be a lot of fun, but please stay tuned, okay? So everybody had a great lunch, yes? Great workshop, wonderful. I'm excited. So we could bring up the slide. We are doing a workshop called The Social Alchemy of Community. What does that mean? Well, I sort of made it up. So we're going to discover together what that means. But before we start, I'm going to premise this workshop with a little kind of precursor. First of all, if you see me on the stage, we're going to play. So this is going to require maybe a little bit of outside of your comfort zone. It's going to require a lot of willingness to play and put yourself out there. And it's going to require that you talk to people you don't yet know. So that's what this workshop's about. And I just wrote a little bit. I'm going to read a little bit, and then we're going to get into it. So who here is interested in intentional community? Yes. Wonderful. Almost everybody. Now, intentional community can be defined as whatever makes sense to you. So it doesn't have to be go living on a permaculture farm in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by nothing or just nature. It could look like that, but it could be as intentional as being here with this community and making it whatever you want it to be. And there's a lot of people that are afraid to define intentional community in their own words and in their own experience and through their own desire and their own in accordance or in alignment with their own values. It doesn't have to look like something that's been created before. You get to create it here now. And that being said, there is an intentionality behind creating an intentional community. It is, in essence, a living ecosystem. And that means there's many parts. And if we look at intentional community, again, it doesn't have to, you can just wipe it from your mind. It doesn't have to look like living somewhere on a commune, which could be okay if that's what you want, but it doesn't have to look like that. But it is filled with people. And what's the hardest thing to get along with? People, right? We can get along with nature. We just need to tune our bodies to get along with nature. But other people is generally, that's where the challenges happen. So today we're going to play, and I'm going to present to you 12 archetypes. Now, archetypes are, it's a system, if you will, that's been around since the days of Jung. And some people really, really enjoy his work. Other people don't. But I'm going to ask you to suspend all sense of reality and step into this today as a challenge to be able to grab information from the collective stream of consciousness. And I want you to identify with one of the 12 archetypes. Now, I'm going to read them to you, and I simplified this very, very short. There's a sentence that says the general of what this archetype stands for. Obviously, there's a whole complex description. We're not going there. And I also wrote a little bit of the negative, of the challenges, right? So, for example, one archetype might be this, but they have challenges doing this. So just understand that there's always a challenge associated with each archetype. When you listen to the archetypes, again, there's going to be 12. I want you maybe to just shut your eyes and see what resonates with you the most. Now, we know as humans, we are complex beings. We are multiple, features, and there's so much to it. We're not just one thing. But for the sake of this particular exercise, notice which archetype resonates with you the most, okay? And after I read all 12 of them, if somebody needs me to read it again, that's great. But I'm going to give you instructions after that. So everybody understand the instructions? Okay, let's go to the first archetype. Okay, so the first archetype is the visionary. The visionary inspires others, sees the big picture, focused on the collective long-term goals. And a challenge might be they can be idealistic and may struggle with the execution. Okay? Second archetype, the organizer. The organizer keeps things structured, manages logistics, can be rigid, and may struggle with flexibility or creativity. Just notice, is this you? The next archetype is the caretaker. This is me. The caretaker nurtures relationships, offers emotional support, creates a sense of belonging, but can be challenged by experiencing burnout and may struggle with their own personal boundaries. The next archetype is the worker. Now, the worker is skilled in hands-on work, keeps physical infrastructure intact. They may undervalue social dynamics and can be resistant to change. Okay. The next archetype is the mediator. The mediator resolves conflicts, fosters communication, keeps harmony, may avoid taking a firm stance. Okay. The next archetype, oh, by the way, I didn't mention most of us are all of these archetypes. So again, because the next one is me too, but this is me. Just again, notice internally which resonates the strongest with you. The next archetype is the rebel. The rebel challenges the norm, sparks change, brings fresh ideas, and can struggle with authority and collaboration. The next archetype is the healer. The healer nurtures well-being, offers wisdom, fosters health, but can become emotionally drained and also can struggle with boundaries. All right. The next archetype is the steward. The steward keeps the community grounded and sustainable, nurtures land and traditions. And the challenge may be they can be slow to adapt to new ideas. The next archetype, which is me too, the free spirit. The free spirit brings creativity, spontaneity, and joy to the group. They can be unreliable and may avoid responsibility. Okay? And the next archetype is the artist. The artist brings creativity, beauty, and cultural depth to the community, can be impractical, and may resist structure. And finally, the last archetype. Oh no, there's two more, sorry. The sage. The sage offers wisdom, perspective, and emotional grounding, can be slow to act, and may struggle with change. And finally, the last archetype is the storyteller. The storyteller preserves history, inspires through words and narratives. However, the challenge may be they can romanticize the past and prioritize perception over reality. Now, did everybody resonate with at least one of these archetypes? Everybody? Yes. Okay. Everybody, is there anybody who has a question? Do you need for me to? Yes. Which archetype are you talking? The organizer. Can you please bring up the organizer? Por favor. I'm frozen. Oh. Una antes, yeah, perfect. Okay. All right. And tell me, raise your hand if you resonated very strongly with two or more of these. Yeah. Okay. Guess what? You're human. That's a good thing. It was just a check. But everybody's got the one that is the strongest resonation inside of them. They feel like this is the one that I am sitting with right now. This is me. Correct? Okay, well, if you have three, I have three too, but I know the one that's strongest for me. So the one that's strongest, and you'll have aspects of the other two, and that's great. And we embody aspects of every single one of these, whether it's the archetype itself or the challenge of the archetype. And if you ever pursue doing archetype work or shadow work with Jung and any of those ideas, you'll get into this. Yes. Caretaker is usually from a parental perspective, but it doesn't have to be a parent. It could be somebody who takes care of the elderly. The healer is hands-on healing, and then they go off and hands-on heal somebody else, where the caretaker is really about the relationship. Okay. My shoe's untied. All right. Everybody's got an archetype? Type? All right. Can we bring up the second to the last slide that has all 12 of them? Gracias. All right, guys. If I can invite everybody in this moment to stand up. Everybody stand up. And let's just shake a little bit. Shake, 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 shake. We're alive. We're bringing all the energy back into our body. We're shaking. Okay. take a look at the screen. Oh. And notice where you are on the archetypes. There's no top or bottom, right or wrong. It's just where you happen to be in the order, your archetype. Okay? And now I want you to go intentionally form a community, but each member of the community must be a different archetype. So go talk to everybody, find out what archetype people are, and form a community. You've got about 15 minutes. Go find each other. Find each other. Good to meet you. I'm sorry. No, you guys. You're good. Nice to meet you. You too. Are there any groups that are complete with 12 members? Any 12-member groups complete? No, you guys are still searching. Is there a complete group? Are there any complete? Okay, we've got a no. Okay, so are there single people that do not have a group yet? A single person who does not have a group yet. Okay, single person who doesn't have a group in the back with the beautiful black and white striped shirt. What is your archetype? Yes, you. What is your archetype?
We're taking applications over here for the steward and the mediator and the sage and the artist over here.
Wow. I think we just met a visionary. Are there any people that are seeking a group? You are seeking a group. No, there are a lot of incomplete groups, correct? All right. Yeah? Are there any groups of 6 people or less? 6 people or less. We have a 6-person or less group. I'm going to invite you guys in the back. Spread out and go find a new group. Spread out and find a new group. And actually, why don't I help you? So the group that I just broke up, come on up here and we're going to announce what you are and we'll see if a group claims you. All right, we have on the auction block, not really, come on. What is your archetype?
Visionary.
We have a visionary. This group needs a visionary. No. Oh, you have a group? No. What are you?
Rebel.
We have a rebel. Is anybody missing a rebel in their group? All right, you will join this group. We have a sage. Does anybody seeking a sage? Any other people from that group that I just disbanded? Is everybody in a group now? Yes. All right. Communities. I'm going to ask you all. Oh, wait. You need or you are? That's me. I'll come join you guys. All right, guys. So I would like each community to find a separate place. Oh, yeah. Amy.
Mediator and a steward.
Are there any people that are not in a group yet? We have a visionary looking for a home. There are going to be some groups that do not have every single piece. And this is what happens in intentional communities. Some people need to step up and do dual roles. You know this. Yeah. Okay, guys, every community, whether you're missing a people or not, every community, please go to different places in the room. We could go to the back, we can come the center, but find a space where you can all either sit together or sit on the floor or sit in chairs. I'm going to invite each community to find a space. Everybody have a place to sit? Everybody knows where they're sitting and you're part of a community? Are there any people? We know that there's some communities without certain roles. I know you need it. I'm not a steward. That's not me. All right. Once you are settled in your community, I would like you one by one to introduce yourself with one sentence. My name is Lainey, and I am a caretaker because, and that's it. Okay. My name is, and I am this role because I do this, I am this, whatever. Okay. So everybody get to know everybody in your community. My name is, and I am this archetype because. Okay. Okay, I'm not sure if you've done the introductions, but I just spoke with a group. They're finished with the introductions and they're totally complete. So if you're not a complete group, notice which archetype you're missing, and one or two or three of you are going to cover the space from that archetype, okay? And it's okay if not, if you don't have 12 of everything. And it's okay if you have 2 of something, you'll make it work, okay? And the next part of the exercise is we're going to bring it on screen. We're going to do something together, but when you guys are participating in the group, participate from the framework of your archetype. So make sure the interaction really comes from that space. And can we bring up the last slide? So this is your work, guys, and we're going to make this really, really big. So get rid of me. Intentional community. You're going to write a mission statement. We are the community known as blank. We, or who, does this for who we do it for. By focusing on this and living in alignment with these values, we know we are successful when we blank and blank. All right, have fun, guys. This is your challenge and have fun with it. And not to add more pressure, but we have about 5 minutes. You got this. You got this. Unfortunately, we are out of time. However, I just spoke with Derek, and in the Telegram group, he's going to create a networking channel for us. And I'm going to encourage you guys to take what you've got and put it into the Telegram group. So I'm sorry we didn't get to come up and share our mission statements with everybody. But again, please do remember this exercise. Was this useful for you guys? Yes? Okay. Did you learn something about yourself? Okay, awesome. And did you learn how to be in community with people that are different? And did it help you to understand that there are nuances, differences, nuances between each one of us? But there's a lot of crossover, right? Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for playing.
Yes, thank you guys. We're going to continue on with our day. So if I could ask everybody to wrap up the groups and put your chairs back quietly, we're going to get ready for our next speaker. And you're definitely going to want to hear her. So please keep the noise down a little bit if you can, quietly. Quietly move the chairs back. Everybody at home, thank you guys for being here. While they're setting up the chairs, I want to take a moment to say thank you to all the sponsors who have made the People's Reset happen. Brother Bruce, we're wrapping up now. Can you guys please bring the chairs back? Thank you so much. Just thank you to all the sponsors who have made this happen. Besides everybody in this room, buying tickets, the way this event happens is through sponsors and through people who support us. So we just wanted to take a moment to highlight a few of those sponsors who have invested in our movement and what we're doing here in Mexico and who want to help us build a better world. Guys, could you please keep it down in this room? I'm going to ask everybody in this room to keep their voices down. If somebody's talking next to you, tap them, please. This is still the room for the talks, guys, so please keep it down. Thank you so much. Right there, give a round of applause to all these sponsors who made this event happen. Scale, the Meditate More podcast, Above Phone, Weston A. Price, Zano, Regenerative Culture. There's a couple others I want to mention, Logos, as well as Daylight Computer. We're going to be talking about more of these throughout the week, but really, truly, without your tickets and without these people investing in us, we would not be able to host this event. This event costs $45,000 to make happen. And it's not cheap. It takes a lot of time, money, and energy. So thank you to all those sponsors. Please get to know them, visit their websites. And I did want to shout out one particular sponsor real quick. Again, if somebody's talking next to you, tap them and remind them they're in the conference room. Ladies, we're in the conference room where people are going to be speaking. Please take the conversations outside. All right. Now come back down from your awesome community networking and get ready for some more information. One quick shout out to one of the sponsors, the Meditate More podcast. Who here meditates or tries to? Tries to. What about those of you who are trying everything? Okay. If you want a little bit help, I want to recommend this podcast. It's by a gentleman named Manny Mandala. He is one of our sponsors. If you just go to Meditate More Podcast, I think it's just meditatemorepodcast.com or just search that and wherever you listen to podcasts, because he has created a very easy to understand and digest podcast that takes you from episode 1 all the way through and can really, even if you're somebody like me who's been meditating off and on for 20 years, can give you a lot of useful tips of just to kind of, if you need to recalibrate or get yourself sorted. I encourage you guys to check it out. Again, that's the Meditate More podcast. All right, guys. You ready for some more knowledge? Ready for some more information? I need more than that. I need a little more than that. There we go. Let's get you all centered. All right. Thank you so much. Okay. So this next speaker is a good friend of mine, longtime friend in the independent media. You may have seen her out there on the internet making viral clips discussing how crazy our world's getting and calling out government. Please make a big round of applause. Warm welcome for Carrie Wedler.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here. It was a great diversion to do the community networking thing and take my mind off of my speech for a minute. Let me see how I can get this. I'm going to go right off the edge here. Do that. So we're going to start off with a video that actually comes from a fictional movie. It's the movie version of 1984. And it just feels like louder. Is that better? Okay. I'm trying to keep my vision on my PowerPoint while also being audible. Okay. One moment. And I got to get into StreamYard. Ooh, something went wrong. Perfect. Hold on. I think I got it. Is it going? Yeah. I'm just going to accept the cookies. Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you. Okay. Cool. So I'm starting with a fictional video, and they're going to run it for me. I just feel like it really embodies a lot of the collective energy right now. And mind the volume, because, you know, it's And okay, so that's fictional, but if any of you have read 1984, that's from the 2 Minutes Hate, where the crowd gets really riled up and the propaganda is blaring at them and they're getting really reactive and really caught up in their programming. Which brings me to, I wanted to bring a couple examples of this happening like with real people. So if you could run one of those, they're also loud, unfortunately.
Oh, do it on camera. What's your name? 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 Why are you shaking? You scared? You're shaking.
We got one more. I had to do both sides, left and right.
Fuck! Could this year get any fucking worse? Ruth, you just had to make it to 2021!
Okay. I feel like that sometimes, honestly, just not about what she was upset about. Okay. Still can't hear me. Okay, I'm trying to get my PowerPoint up on the screen too. So just give me a moment. I'll do share screen. Okay. It wants me to open system settings. Just a moment. Sorry, guys. Oh, she was upset that Ruth Bader Ginsburg had passed away, and that was going to change the balance of the Supreme Court. And I find this incredible because she's like talking directly to Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who is dead. So that's just indicative of really how far out there she had gotten. Yeah, we're having an issue. It wanted systems permissions. So if we do share screen, if I did, that worked last night, but it's not letting me do it right now, unfortunately. Sorry, guys.
It's open already? You already have the top?
Yeah, it's right here.
Okay. Share screen. This notification. I've never seen this window before.
Yeah, this did not come up last night when we tested it.
Try capturing different screens. What the hell? Okay. It's you've got it sent to me.
If you could pull it up, yeah.
I'm gonna try to pull it up.
Cool. Okay, cool. So well, obviously my talk is called, as if there's a screen up there. I'm delusional. So it's called Holding Space for Mass Psychosis. And I think if you're at this conference, you're probably aware that there's a sense in the collective energy that people are getting increasingly agitated and riled up and reactive and dysregulated. And that's what I want to talk about today, because I think there's a lot of factors to it. And right now I'm just kind of holding space for the technical issues until my slides come up. But obviously there's a lot of agitation, a lot of reactivity, and I want to get into why that is, why I believe that is. But first I want to take a little detour. Normally I would have my slide up for this, but I'm waiting on it, so I'll just get right into it. I want to defer or bring up a book that I think is really important. It's called The Crowd by Gustave Le Bon. Because I bring this up because when I talk about mass psychosis, I don't mean to suggest that people who are still participating in the matrix are still locked into it or like individually having manic and psychotic episodes. If you've ever experienced that or you've witnessed it, I think you're aware, like people are not walking around manic and psychotic. But the reason I want to bring in The Crowd is because that's what I'm speaking to. And The Crowd was written by 1895 by a man named Gustave Le Bon. He was a French sociologist, and it's really based on the premise and what he explains from his perspective is that individuals can become submerged into a group mentality, into the crowd, and really reason and rationality go out the window and emotion and impulse take over. And I had a couple quotes. I may not be able to share them with you guys right now because I don't have them memorized, but really it's about the submission of the individual to the group and the well, really, it was written as a means of action for the leaders. I'm going to get into that later, but this is not just an obscure book. This is not something that was thrown in the dustbin of history and people recently discovered this. This influenced Benito Mussolini. It influenced Theodore Roosevelt. It shared a lot of the same sensibilities as Joseph Goebbels, the Nazi propaganda minister. It also heavily influenced Edward Bernays. You may be familiar with him. He's kind of like the godfather of modern American propaganda. He helped propagandize Americans into supporting World War I. He helped sanitize the CIA coup in Guatemala. He was also very much involved in commercial enterprise as well. And interestingly, he influenced Joseph Goebbels. So there's kind of like this removed influence of Gustave Le Bon. How's the PowerPoint going over there? Are we any? Okay, cool. I'm going from memory right now. But actually, I think I could, I have my PowerPoint. I have my slides, obviously. Okay. Hopefully they'll be up soon. I'll click. Okay, I'm going. Oh, here we go. I have my quote. So this is from The Crowd. The crowd is always dominated by considerations of which it is unconscious, the lowering of the intelligence and the complete transformation of the sentiments. The sentiments and ideas of all the persons in the gathering take one in the same direction and their conscious personality vanishes. And I think this really happens on a sociological level, especially with politics. And what I found interesting is he wrote this in 1895. And at the time he was even saying, people don't have to be assembled in a physical crowd for this to take hold. They can be in different areas. It's more a matter of shared belief and ideology. And I think this is so exacerbated now because of social media. You can go online, you can find your crowd, you can go in your echo chambers, and the ideas get more and more reinforced. And I already went through, okay, I did that. So that book was really written. You know, it's funny because I read the book and I thought, wow, like there's no way this guy thinks this is a good thing. I mean, this is pretty daunting and it's pretty depressing. But he actually wrote it kind of as a guide for leaders, at least some of the chapters. It was like, well, if you want to control the masses, here's how you do it. And I'm going to get to that in a little bit. But for right now, I want to come back to the mania and the psychosis. And a quick disclaimer is that these are different things, but I have found they really overlap in a lot of the symptoms. And you can see it organized on my PowerPoint. It's not going to come up right now. But from what I've come to understand in a simplistic way, mania is really a mood disorder. It's how the mood changes and gets dysregulated, whereas psychosis is more issues with perceptions of reality. So some of the symptoms that I think are, I'm not going to list all of them, but I want to list some that are relevant to watching the propagandized crowds right now. There's irritability and agitation in a manic episode, a sense of grandiosity. I'm going to explain that more in a little bit. It can include hallucinations and delusions. Those are considered psychotic symptoms. And just a quick, I want to separate those two. So from my understanding, hallucinations are literally seeing or hearing things that are not there. Delusions are believing things that aren't true. And this talk, I think, more focuses on delusion, but I gotta say, watching reactions to some recent shootings in the United States, somebody is hallucinating because people are interpreting those things very differently and only one of them can be true. So some people are watching that video and literally hallucinating things that are not there. The relevant psychotic symptoms I have here, obviously hallucinations and delusions. There's suspiciousness, there's paranoid ideas, uneasiness with others. I think this increasingly permeates the collective consciousness and the political paradigm. Trouble thinking clearly and logically, confused speech, or trouble communicating. If you ever try to talk to people who are hopelessly ensnared in the matrix, that probably sounds familiar. It kind of gets incoherent, it gets really scattered, it gets really emotional, and there's like a bunch of typos, and that could be autocorrect, to be fair. But a lot of the time, there's like a real lack of coherence, and obviously difficulty telling reality from fantasy. And so to clarify, I just want to reiterate, I'm not saying that anyone who is still believing the propaganda is like literally having psychotic and manic episodes. And I'm also not saying that they're inherently bad. I don't think if you had a psychotic or manic episode that there's something bad or evil about you, but I do think it becomes an issue when it can cause harm. If you're inflicting harm, or if this energy is filtered through a violent institution like government that's feeding off of it and causing harm through it. So moving forward, I wanted to get into, there's still no PowerPoint, huh? Okay, that's fine, that's fine. So I wanted to get into some partisan delusions because a lot of people are still locked in the left-right paradigm. And I'm just gonna go over a couple. For example, there is a genuine belief in the MAGA community that Trump is a peace president. And this is provably false. It was false during his first administration when he was bombing numerous countries. It was false. Well, it's false again. He's also bombing numerous countries, and obviously his support for Israel, which is a big warmonger. Like he's not a peace president. That is a delusion. That can be proven repeatedly and repeatedly and repeatedly. If you're interested, I have an article on it on my Substack. Another one, Trump will release the Epstein files. People really sincerely believe that to be fact with certainty. And I think some people are starting to get over that particular delusion, but it's still very true for a lot of people. And I'm happy to correct myself if that proves otherwise and he releases all the unredacted files. I will eat my words here, but for now, it is a delusion. And of course, there's Democrat delusions. The popular one is the vaccine stops infection and transmission. That was proven to not be true very early on, but it was still believed. I was actually kicked out of an ER in September of 2022 because I was unvaccinated. And at this point in time, this was everywhere. It was accepted science, and I was still kicked out. And the people kicking me out of the hospital, I wasn't in the ER, it was a family member, but it didn't matter. They could not see through the delusion. Another one, I don't know if you guys have ever seen the mashup of mainstream media. Oh, yay. Okay, we got it. Yay. Okay. We're going to go forward next, but in just a minute. Yeah, that's perfect. That's exactly where I am. There was a really common phrase on mainstream media news channels during the first Trump administration. I don't know if you've ever heard it, but the walls are closing in. There was a repeated narrative that Trump was for sure going to get caught for Russian collusion. But a lot of people genuinely believed that. It was true to them. Like, it's just a matter of time. The walls are closing in. He will be prosecuted. He's a criminal. It's going to be proven that never happened. So these are just some examples of partisan delusions. But I wanted to get into next slide. I'm going to have to get used to that. I wanted to get into the broader delusions of the entire statist system, because I think that these partisan delusions are really an outgrowth of this. And I have a whole list here. Feel free to read through them. And I've noted what symptoms they display. I'm just going to name a couple for the sake of time. I don't love this one, but I love using this as an example. This idea that your vote is your voice. We are all conditioned to believe this. A lot of people genuinely believe it. They believe that they cast a vote, and it not immediately, but it literally translates into government caring about what they want, and that they have a voice and they have agency. I think this is provably false. And it's also a sense of grandiosity. It's this delusions of grandeur that the government cares about me and my voice is being reflected through the government. Another one I wanted to touch on is, if you don't share my ideology, you're evil. And I have a screenshot here of a poll. It's a YouGov poll in, let's see, it looks like 2024. Nearly half of Americans think members of the opposing political party are evil, not just misguided, not just ignorant, but actually evil. And maybe there's a chance that's true, but I find that really hard to believe. I think they've been manipulated. I think their morals have been exploited, but I cannot believe that many people are just straight up evil. So that embodies the paranoia, the suspicion, the agitation, the delusion. And now I want to come back to the crowd, because I've given you kind of the alignment with mania and psychosis, but I think it really filters through these concepts of the crowd. And I'm going to start with the Bernays quote you may have heard. It's a really famous one. The conscious and intelligent manipulation of the organized habits and did I say next slide? No, I didn't. Next slide. You can read it along with me. Sorry, this is going to keep happening, I think. The conscious and intelligent manipulation of the organized habits and opinions of the masses is an important element in democratic society. Those who manipulate this unseen mechanism of society constitute an invisible government, which is the true ruling power of our country. We are governed, our minds molded, our tastes formed, our ideas suggested largely by men we have never heard of. That was Edward Bernays, who was influenced by Le Bon, who wrote that a crowd is a servile flock that is incapable of ever doing without a master. All crowds are doubtless always irritable and impulsive, but with great variations of degree. And I just want to clarify, there's a lot more nuance to their writings. I'm kind of pulling what feels relevant to this talk. I highly, 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 highly recommend reading what they had to say, because it gives such an interesting and informative lens to view current events and social psychology through. Okay, next slide. And I wanted to focus on one particular part of this book that stood out the most to me. There's a section called The Means of Actions of the Leaders. So when I said that he wrote this book in a way to kind of inform the leaders, the rulers, of how to control people, he called it to imbue the mind of a crowd with ideas and beliefs. And he cautioned that it takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, but eventually it sets in, and the events or the beliefs or sentiments are very long lasting. So the first step is affirmation. It's basically picking a simple phrase or a slogan, think like hope and change or make America great again. He said usually they're devoid of meaning and really difficult to find any concrete meaning in them, but then you repeat it over and over and over and over again. And Joseph Goebbels actually had the same strategy. He said that propaganda must always be essentially simple and repetitious. And I want to bring in a few more points about this. So it's simplicity, constant exposure, or one more point. And he spoke a lot about prestige, which I interpret from his writing to mean authority. And not every single example he gave of a prestigious person was a ruler, but a lot of them were listed there. So there's really something to this top-down authority. And one, just to give you guys a little more context, it's not necessary, but I think it's important, is that he thought that the affirmations, these combinations of words, were not really what was powerful. It was the imagery they conjured. So it was whatever emotions came up, whatever visuals came up. So when you say "Make America Great Again" to someone who believes that, it conjures, I think, a bygone era when America it feels nostalgic now, when America was the leader of the world and everything was prosperous. Hope and change, conjures a similar thing, but for the other side. Next slide. So I want to get into something that I think really represents what I'm talking about here, which was the assassination of Charlie Kirk. I have been paying attention for quite a long time now, and I have never seen that kind of intense reactivity and agitation from either side. It was so charged. People were I want to say they were glitching out. Like watching videos of people speaking really felt like they were losing it. And I'm just going to go through, I broke this down in a video I made around the time this happened, but I really think it fits what I'm talking about. So I want to reiterate it here. So some affirmations for the right wing that I think drove this reaction were things like Democrats hate America, left-wing lunatics, radical left. And for the left wing, we've got democracy is at risk, fascism, right-wing extremism. And it conjured all this imagery that people have been exposed to. They've not only been repeatedly exposed to the affirmations, but they've been exposed to the imagery that came along with it. So for the right wing, it was imagery of like riots and Antifa, and that's really upsetting to them. For the left wing, think of things like January 6th or Charlottesville. These are things that are extremely emotionally volatile, and they've been shown over and over and over again, and these affirmations have been repeated over and over again. And then came the contagion, where with all of this repetition, all of this imagery, the polarization just kept going and going and going, and these sides have adopted their beliefs and their realities. And so Kirk's killing, we're on the right slide, yeah, served as a flashpoint to ignite deeply ingrained beliefs and extreme stress reactions. And I think even when you're looking at the videos of people on the left who are celebrating and laughing about it, it does not seem like genuine joy. There's like there's something not right there. This does not feel like a real celebration. It feels like dysregulation. And to me, it mirrored that manic, agitated energy that I'm talking about. And I just want to point out, I think it's normal to have a stress response to something like that. It was very upsetting to watch. I did not even like Charlie Kirk. I disagreed with the vast majority of what he said, but seeing someone killed in that way, I think it's normal to have a reaction. However, the way the left and right were reacting, I think was unwarranted. It was over the top. So next slide. Thank you. Now I want to get into what I think the Charlie Kirk reactions were really an outgrowth of. I think that was a surface layer manifestation of the deeper statist programming. So for example, and it's it's on the slide, but I'll say it out loud. This programming spans public education to the political world, to mainstream media, to entertainment and culture. And it's all around us all the time. So phrases like "we the people," I'm not saying it was intentionally written to be propaganda, but it's not accurate. At the time, it was not accurate. It was a small group of men in a room with power and authority deciding that we the people are going to create this government. The other people living in America were not consulted. They were not asked if they consented. So it wasn't true then. And it's definitely not true today, because we weren't asked either back in 1780, whenever the Constitution was written, 1789, I want to say. Something like consent of the governed. I'm going to defer to Larkin Rose here because I got this idea from him. He said, like, very plainly, if it's government, it's not consensual. So they are incompatible. It's simply contradictory. And majority rule. If you watch the news and you follow mainstream politics, people often appeal to that. Well, a majority of Americans want this policy, therefore it should be done. You hear it a lot with Donald Trump has a mandate, therefore he can do whatever he wants because we gave him a mandate, therefore it's good. In history, a majority of Americans supported the internment of Japanese Americans. A majority supported bombing Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So I don't believe you can equate morality and righteousness with a majority. And these terms, all the same, imply civilization and humanitarianism, but I believe they just perpetuate delusions and they mask the true nature of the state, which is coercion and violence. However, as much as there is this much programming, I strongly believe that people intuitively know what the true nature of the state is. Otherwise, they would not be so scared and stressed out about the wrong person gaining power. They would not be so fearful. They know there is force involved. Next slide. So that brings me to the next subject, or the next piece of this, which is stress. You hear a common phrase around election times: vote as if your life depended on it. It's the most important election of our lifetime. And no wonder people are scared. They're being told that literally their life is at risk if they do not vote, or if the election goes the wrong way. And to speak to this, there's a poll from the American Psychological Association in 2024 77% of Americans reported significant stress about the future of the country. 69% reported significant stress about the election. And while their lives may not be in immediate danger, so this stress really is not biologically warranted, and much of the anxiety does come from fear mongering, there is a real sense of impending danger because the state is violent and rights can be violated and people can be physically harmed. So I'm talking a lot about the fight or flight response, which I'm sure you all have heard of. And it's the body and the brain's survival mechanism. So it's really intended for true life or death situations, like you're being chased by a predator or you need to survive a natural disaster. And when the body is functioning optimally, you get the stress reaction, you survive, and it goes back to normal. But in the modern world, stress is activated for so much more than just life or death situations, and it's really quite dysregulated. There are a lot of reasons for this, but I'm focusing on politics, so I'm going to stick with that. Between the elections, between the consequences of policy, between the economy, and just the extreme polarization, politics is a significant source of stress. And as I was writing this speech, I was thinking about this, and I'm going to try to articulate it clearly. I just not had as much time to marinate in my brain, so forgive me if I mess this up, but I do feel that the inherent anxiety people feel around law enforcement is a real indicator that these systems are not natural to being human. The fact that, thank you. Yeah, we are not meant to be in fight or flight as a default, and yet when government gets involved, very often there's fight or flight. And another example of this is how traumatized soldiers become when they go to fight for the ruling class. I think if this were inherent to our nature, it would not be so traumatizing to go and do that. It would just be another day. And yet it's very damaging to the human psyche and spirit. And so between sensationalized fear mongering and the inherently coercive nature of the state, fear really is a key feature of the political paradigm. Next slide. And when people are caught in chronic fight or flight, something happens to the brain. Not necessarily, I don't want to say in every single case, but the general tendency based on the research I've read is that the neurons of the prefrontal cortex, which is generally considered the reasoning and logic center of the brain, the thinking center, the neurons, the dendrites and spines of those neurons become atrophied. And they start to fade away and deteriorate, while the amygdala, which is a key part of the stress response, and it plays a role in regulating emotions, that becomes more reactive. So when people are caught in fight or flight, just on a broad scale, I'm not speaking explicitly and specifically, but in a broad view, when people are stuck in survival mode, they do not have as much access to their critical thinking centers. Memory function also deteriorates. And I believe that when people are in chronic stress, especially when they are still locked into the system, it's understandable and I think pretty natural that they want to have faith in whoever's telling them that they don't have to worry anymore, that they're going to solve the problems and they don't have to be scared and the discomfort will go away. And they listen to politicians who tell them this, and they outsource their agency. And of course, if you're here at this conference, you probably know that rarely are these problems ever solved. They either get worse or they stay the same, and the solution is always more power. And I just want to point out, I'm not going to spend much time on it, but stress is implicated in the onset of both manic and psychotic episodes. It's not the only determining factor, but it can be a precipitating factor. Next slide. All right, so before I go any further, shake it out. I've got a stress reaction right now. Okay, before I go any further, I just want to summarize. So at least some of the collective crowd consciousness appears to be caught in a mania psychosis characterized by agitation, incoherence, delusions, hallucinations, grandiosity, and paranoia. This is attributable, in my view, to two major factors, not limited to it, but it's generations of propaganda and programming that exploit and control crowd consciousness, and the stress that both propaganda and the political system exert on people stuck in the matrix. Now, I want to just give a nod to other factors because I don't want to act like what I'm discussing is the be-all, end-all exhaustive list, but there's toxins in everything that cannot help for regulation and sanity and grounding. Social media addiction, it's so bad for your nervous system. And a big one, childhood trauma. I think this is not recognized a lot in the manifestation of political chaos. Some of the childhood trauma directly parallels statism when you're looking at violent parenting. And because I said so, because I'm the authority, and if you don't comply, you will be hit. That is an exact parallel to the state. But there's other kinds of childhood trauma as well that I think leads to dysregulated adults who, when programmed by the system, are willing to keep submitting to that system. Now, this is where I'm going to have some fun. So if you're attending this conference or you're watching from afar, I'm going to make an assumption, I think it's safe, that you're pretty checked out of these systems of control. Like, you see through them, you're aware that it's not working for humanity. However, I think that we are very much not exempt from all of the emotional and mental, next slide, please. Sorry, that's on me. We're not exempt from the emotional and mental and spiritual chaos this system sows. We're still human beings. We're still in this version of reality. And even if we see through the mainstream propaganda, we're not immune to this energy. And I hate to say it, but having worked in independent media for a while, there is a lot of delusion in that kind of reporting. There are a lot of things that are just categorically false. But because people have checked out of the mainstream propaganda, I think there's an assumption that it's safe to believe anything that challenges the status quo. That doesn't mean they're not believing delusions. And many of us are chronically online. We're stuck in rabbit holes. We're caught in the same reactive energy as those still stuck in the programming. We may have different beliefs, but the energy is actually quite similar to what I've been talking about. There's agitation, there's paranoia and suspicion, especially if you go deep down the conspiracy rabbit hole, racing thoughts, stress, and the delusions, as I mentioned. Next slide. So I think something has to give. I think if you've been paying attention for a while, you can see that the energy just keeps getting more and more exacerbated. And it's unfortunately especially true the last few weeks with everything that's been going on in the United States. People just keep getting more and more ramped up. And while I believe that practical solutions are essential, and I encourage you to go to all the talks about practical solutions, I think they are absolutely important. I also believe they're not going to do that much if we're still stuck in the same dysregulation, the emotional, the spiritual, the mental paradigm that created such a need for the solutions. Next slide. And I want to speak to something that I feel a lot. I don't know if you guys feel the same, but I think a lot of times, if you know Office Space, it's a quote from the movie Office Space. It's like, why should I change? They're the ones who suck. Like, why do I have to do the work to change the world when they're the ones making it crappy? So it's understandable to feel frustrated and resentful at the crowd for the blindness, the obedience, the ignorance, the lack of critical thinking. Like in an ideal world, they'd be the ones putting in the work to make the changes, although in an ideal world, like that wouldn't have to happen. However, I do have some hope that there are people who are still waking up. I used to be a rabid Barack Obama supporter a long time ago, and now I'm here speaking to you guys. So that was a change. And I think a lot of people, there's still hope, but a lot of them, we cannot wait for them to figure it out and to break free, which means it's on us, fortunately and unfortunately, to shift the paradigm and the collective energy more toward harmony and peace and freedom rather than the current discord. And I just want to say, I know I'm saying we need to do this, for the world, but I think individually, it's first and foremost, it's for the person doing it. And that then ripples out into the world. I'm going to get into that. So I'm going to share some of my ways that I have found grounding and peace and calmed my energy and the things that I practice. It may not work for you. It may not sound right. It's not an exhaustive list. So I'm just sharing the things that work best for me. And I'm going to start with the most normie one. Next slide. The most mainstream one, which is yoga and meditation. So I started doing yoga quite a long time ago, I think 13 years ago. I've been meditating for about a decade. And both of these practices have been repeatedly shown to reduce stress and anxiety, which is cool. And that actually improves your physical health because stress is very much associated with disease and illness. I'll get into that in a little bit. But there's other physical benefits, flexibility, strength, which I didn't put in here, but certain practices really build your strength, inflammation reduction, lowering blood pressure, improving balance. But it also has cognitive and mental and emotional benefits, easing depression, increased focus and attention, increased neuroplasticity, which is the brain's ability to change. I'm going to get more into that as well in a few moments. Increased neural connectivity, reduced amygdala reactivity. As I mentioned when discussing chronic fight or flight, the amygdala plays a really big role in that. So if you can soothe that, that's probably good. Improve cognitive function. And I think the real power of these practices for me has been that they really allow me to cultivate space to feel difficult feelings. And I think that that is a key factor in the current political chaos is we aren't taught how to do that. We aren't taught how to sit with discomfort. And so it's really knee-jerk for a lot of people when they're programmed into the system to seek outside themselves to the person who tells them they'll feel better. So the more we can cultivate our ability to feel difficult feelings, I think the better for humanity and ourselves. Caveat, it does not help as much if you're trying to spiritually bypass with these practices and just numb out. Like, I don't think you get as much benefit. I just want to put that out there. I've done that before. I think my first 5 years of both of these practices, I was just trying to avoid myself. So just keep that in mind. I wanted to name a couple kinds that have worked for me. Again, not an exhaustive list. So if none of these resonate, please look up other kinds. There's so many different things. Vinyasa, that's what I did my teacher training in. That's more strength-oriented, flow-based. When you see warrior poses, that's usually vinyasa or another variation. Yin yoga, I think this is very important and helpful because it helps you get deep into your fascia where a lot of emotion is stored. It's like a deep stretch practice where you hold poses for 3 minutes, but you're not doing a warrior for 3 minutes. You're doing like a pigeon pose. You're stretching out your hips. And it can get actually quite emotional as things start to emerge. I think that's really important. There's restorative yoga, which is the coziest yoga I've ever done. You just use blocks and blankets and props and you just like melt into the cushion and it's really wonderful for relaxing. There's kirtan, which is actually chanting and singing yoga, usually done in a community setting. And I would have never thought that I would have liked it. But the first time I did it, I ended up like, I was the only one left singing when everyone else had shut up because I was so into it. I didn't even realize how great it was, or that it ended. I realized how great it was, but I did not realize they had stopped singing. Meditation, Vipassana practice. I confess I have not gone on the 10-day Vipassana retreat, but I have done a lot of Vipassana meditations. And it's really a practice of becoming aware of what's happening in your body, of tuning into the sensations and being fully present with it. And yoga nidra is it's kind of, I don't want to say it's a yogic form of that meditation, but it's a lot of body scanning, feeling sensation. I think that relaxes me more than any of these practices. And then breath work. There's a lot of kind of breath work. So look those up. And if these don't resonate at all, please feel free to look up more. And if none of them resonate, that's fine. A quick caveat, I'm often told I'm not flexible enough for yoga and my mind is too busy for meditation. This practice is for you. This is exactly for you. Yoga can help bring you flexibility, and meditation can help calm your mind, as long as you're not doing it with force, as long as you're using it as a gentle, loving practice. I think it's incredibly powerful. And yogic philosophy is actually very much in line with voluntarist values. I don't have a lot of time to talk about today, but I have a speech on YouTube. If you just search Carrie Wedler Yoga, it's like 10 years old, but I think I stand by that speech. I haven't watched it in a decade, but I just went over the yogic philosophy, and I think it's very much aligned. And just some related practices: Qigong, Tai Chi, martial arts, physical exercise, time in nature, really anything that brings you grounding and calm. Next slide. So this one is the toughest one for me, I confess. Compassion practice. I believe that without compassion for those who are still stuck in the system, we're really just mirroring back the exact same energy of the system: the judgment, the blame, the fear, the reactivity, the agitation. And if we're living that energy, I don't think we're going to see the changes we want to see. And I want to point out too that I believe the status system itself is inherently, is discompassionate the word? There's no compassion in that system. There's no regard for what individuals want or how they feel or whether they consent. It's very much too bad, comply or die. At the end of the day, that's what the system comes down to. And I think it really embodies this lack of compassion I'm talking about. However, I don't know if this will land for you. It really landed for me when my mentor told me many years ago. If you don't have compassion for yourself, it's going to be really hard to have it for others. So as always, we start with ourselves. I want to recommend just a couple things. There's a meditation teacher named Tara Brach. She's wonderful. She really helps you feel your feelings, get into compassion for yourself and the world. And she has the added benefit that she's still kind of stuck in the system. She's an older lady. She's still very much believing in government and elections and the goodness of these institutions. And so every time I listen to her, I kind of have to, not every time because she doesn't always talk about it, but when she does bring up the elections, I'm kind of lying there on my yoga blocks and I just feel this like lurching in my chest of like, ugh. How are you still so programmed? But it's a good opportunity for me to practice the compassion because she's actually taught me so much. And yeah, maybe she still believes things that I think are delusional, but she's also very wise in other ways. So that's a good meta practice of compassion, while teaching it to yourself and having it for her. Great workbook called Self-Compassion Workbook by Kristen Neff. It's actual exercises to help cultivate self-compassion. Highly recommended. There's meditations. These are of the Buddhist variety. There's Ton Glen and Metta Loving Kindness. They work on cultivating self-compassion as well as compassion for humanity and the world. And I just want to point out that research shows that collective meditation practice with intention can literally change the world and affect the external world. There have been studies. I have transcendental meditation here. That's what I've read the most about. There may be others, but I've read studies where crime literally goes down in places where people are collectively meditating with that intention. And I just want to point one thing out about compassion practice, because especially during COVID, when I would talk about having compassion for the people who must be having such a hard time, they want the government to impose such authoritarian measures, I got a lot of pushback. And compassion was often equated with submission. And I don't think that's true at all. I think you can have compassion for people who are horribly misguided and authoritarian and out of their minds without submitting. You can have a boundary and you can still see like, wow, that must be a really hard experience to have. I think that's even true for politicians. I think if you become a politician who really rises to power, like something's not quite there, it's not all there. And I think they're deserving of compassion too, as I stand here and say they have no authority and they're not legitimate and they're very dangerous to humanity. Next slide. We're getting to the end here. So this is one of my favorite ones. It's really simple. It's a practice called soaking. And it's probably the easiest one of all the ones I'm going to list here. And it's from a book called Hardwiring Happiness by neuropsychologist Rick Hansen. Highly recommended. Great read. Very easy. And he talks about how brief intentional efforts throughout the day can literally rewire your brain to be more disposed to contentment and calm as opposed to stress and reactivity. It's informed by Buddhist meditation. As you can tell, I'm into that. but also neuroscience and neuroplasticity, which is the brain's ability to change. And by making these intentional efforts over time, you literally rewire your brain. And in summary, it's so simple. It takes about 10 seconds per little round. You do it several times a day. And all you do is bring awareness to something that's pleasant in your experience. For me, it's like my dog sitting in my lap and I can feel her breathing. And I can feel her soft fur, or it's light through the grass or the trees, or a child laughing. It can be so simple, the taste of a really good meal. And you just pause and you feel what it feels like to experience it in your body. Maybe it's in your heart, maybe it's in your belly or your third eye, wherever it is. It's just taking time to be fully present with your experience. And I talked about spiritual bypass, so I just have a note here. It doesn't require that you just avoid difficult feelings. It's just a practice of creating more space to feel the pleasant feelings as well. So you could be heartbroken, crying about something on your couch, and just pause and be like, oof, this cushion feels really nice, and go right back to crying. And sometimes you can't even do that. And what I took from this book is you can even just visualize a place you've been before, or a place you've seen. So when I can't find anything enjoyable in my experience, I go to the Redwoods, or I go to Hawaii, or I go to the Smoky Mountains, and I can find the beauty there, and I can appreciate that effect in my being. And just one thing to point out about this is it works by rewiring the brain's negativity bias, which I learned about in this book. And he explains it, Rick Hansen explains it as just like, we're wired to be negative because that's more conducive to survival. So if you are walking in the wild and you hear a rustle behind a bush, it's safer to assume it's a tiger and be wrong than to assume it's not a tiger and die. So it's really inborn, but we just don't need it as much in modern life. And this process, this brain soaking really helps rewire that negativity bias toward calm. Now, for some people, and I am some people, this is not enough. And I love these practices, and I have done them for many years, and I continue to do them, and I continue to get benefit from them. But sometimes the stress is just so intense that it's just not enough. And before I get into my story, chronic stress is associated with disease in virtually every bodily system. If you look it up, like stress-related disease, and you look at all the diseases, it spans everything, like digestive, hormonal, heart, autoimmune or immune system. And many Americans, unsurprisingly, have stress-related illness. So I'll share a little story, which is that in 2019, I had what I think I'd always been on the verge of stress-based illness. I'd had little things throughout my life, but otherwise I'd consider myself healthy. I'd had some skin issues. I'd had a few migraines. But I had a very stressful week in 2019 that brought up some childhood stuff. It brought up censorship and politics. It brought up interrelational dynamics. And for about a week in October of 2019, I felt like I had electricity shooting in me, like throughout me. And it was the most glitched out I've ever felt. I imagine this is what manic energy feels like if you're having a manic episode. And I worked through some of the issues. I talked them through. I was feeling my feelings. But at the end of that week, when it calmed down, I started developing symptoms of chronic illness. I developed food sensitivities to so many foods. I couldn't eat anything for years. There were like 3 foods I could eat. I had migraines. They started at maybe once a week. And by the time I found this program I'm about to talk about, I was having them about every other day, and they were getting worse. If you ever had a migraine, you know there's like light sensitivity. Sometimes you throw up. I was starting to go numb in my fingers. My face was going numb. And I was starting to get pretty distressed. And I try not to cry, but I was definitely at a point where nothing worked, nothing helped. And I was just trying to make peace with the fact that I was just going to get sicker and sicker until I died before I wanted to. And then I found this program. So it's called Brain Rewiring. There's multiple kinds of this program. So you can just look this up and you'll see a lot of different varieties. But they work with neuroplasticity, which is the brain's ability to change itself to rewire a dysregulated stress response. And you create new neural pathways. So I'll give you a quick example. My worst food sensitivity was garlic. I could not eat it. And that's really hard if you go out to eat somewhere, garlic's and everything. And I had really severe reactions. But by using this program, I taught my brain to reassociate garlic away from stress and with positive experience. And now I can eat as much garlic as I want. And I don't, because it's pretty strong food, but I could if I wanted to. And to me, that's huge, because garlic for me was like the most characteristic of my illness. It was like, I can't get near garlic. And that's actually part of the wiring, is when you view something as a threat repeatedly, your brain keeps reinforcing those pathways. So this program helps you create new pathways oriented toward calm and peace and healing your stress response. And it is a serious commitment. It's minimum 6 months. It's daily practice. It's probably for people who are actually experiencing physical health problems. I'm not sure. I mean, you could try it if you aren't. It's still wonderful. I know people who have done it without physical symptoms and got a lot out of it. But I just want to do a quick run through of some of the things that can treat. Oh, next slide. Sorry, that was like 10 minutes ago. Next slide. Thank you. Anxiety, depression, PTSD, addiction, fibromyalgia, POTS. I didn't know what POTS was until I did this program. It's postural orthotic tachycardia syndrome, where people who have it, sometimes they can't even sit up. They have to be lying down at all times because their heart will race so fast that it's they're risking their lives by sitting up. And there are people who've done this program who were wheelchair bound and now they're hiking up mountains. Autoimmune disease, all kinds of sensitivities. I have them listed here. Mold illness, Lyme disease, that's a big one this program helps, which is big because a lot of people struggle with this and they don't have a lot of resources to heal. Long COVID, whatever you think of COVID's origins and what it really is, there are people who end up with symptoms that go on. And this program is especially effective for treating long COVID. And I think, I can't say for sure, I think it's because people were so stressed out about COVID. I think that had a real influence in developing it. And I've looked up risk factors for long COVID. Anxiety is one of them. So I'm not surprised this program helps. Migraines, that helped me. I have not had a migraine. I've had one migraine since I did the program, and it was the night before the election, and I did it to myself. I was on my phone all night, like scrolling and checking results. And I woke up like, oh no, I remember what migraines feel like, just apologizing to my brain for doing that to it. But otherwise, I've not had a migraine since. Hormonal and digestive dysfunction. And this is just a small sampling of things that can treat. So I highly recommend, and I don't have a lot of time to get into it, but if you're interested, please feel free to come up to me after and ask me questions. I love to talk about it. So I'm happy to give you all the information. And now I just want to close this out because I realized after writing this speech that everything was really about the brain. I'm really interested in the brain. I almost studied neuroscience, but math was just not going to work for me. So I studied history instead. But we're talking about mania and psychosis, that's the brain, ruling class programming, that affects the brain, and the effects of stress also on the brain. And I found that a lot of times people who are seeking spiritual solutions really want the more sensational practices, the ones that feel psychedelic or are psychedelic or transcendent and otherworldly. And I love those too. I don't want to knock those. But one, I found that some of the most profound spiritual practice for me has been in the mundane, in the daily habits, in the daily practices. And the more that's discovered about the brain, the more I believe we are finding out it is magic in itself. It's so crazy the things the brain is capable of that it can do. And I will say, I think that brain rewiring was the most spiritually powerful and impactful experience of my life. And I attribute that not only to the visualizations you do, because they can get really cool and out there, you can just make them up. I've been like swimming in crystal caves with dolphins under the sea and flying with dragons. And it can also be, well, I'll talk to you separately about that. I won't get too far into that. But I just attribute it to the stress response getting turned down. And as soon as the static started getting turned down in my body knew how to heal itself. It just intuitively, it's like, take away the static, take away the noise. And my body just started falling back into balance on its own. Some fun facts about the brain. There's 86 billion neurons just in the brain, right in here, possibly more. 100 trillion neural connections. My brain can't even fathom how many that is. And it's running on electricity, and it provides a basis for life and consciousness as we know it. I feel like that's really magical. And I don't have time to talk about the mirror neurons, but highly recommend looking into them. I think just the knowledge of mirror neurons suggests that we have power to influence the world around us and to really affect change. So to close it out, I want to focus specifically on neuroplasticity. And this is the brain's ability to change itself, generate new neurons, that's called neurogenesis, create new neural connections. And I think it's really emblematic of our ability to create change in ourselves and in the world. If you're interested in this, highly, highly, highly recommend The Brain That Changes Itself by Norman Doidge. It's a book. It's also a documentary. It's free on YouTube. The documentary is great, but the book has so much more information as usual. So highly recommend reading that. And the reason I want to talk about that specifically is not only that it's so empowering, that it's a sign of our agency, but because the concept of neuroplasticity in adults was denied by mainstream science for decades. They were absolutely certain that only babies and children had neuroplasticity. And a few scientists started researching it, and they started finding that actually adults' brains could change as well. And they were laughed out of the room, and they were told it was junk science. But they kept doing it. They stayed persistent. They did more research, and eventually it became accepted that actually adult brains can change, even into later in life, into the elderly. We all have neuroplasticity. And I think that's so beautiful that these people did not give up. They stuck to their intuition. They stuck to their critical thinking and to their principles and values, and they proved it. And I say that because I think a lot of times our ideas, whether it's freedom or the spirituality or the compassion, all of these things, whatever resonates with you, I think they can be often called delusional or crazy or unrealistic and fringe. But I believe that the more we practice, the more we connect. I'm going to just read this so I don't mess it up. Oh, next slide, part 2. Sorry, guys. I was not coming into the speech planning to have to say what slide I was on, so my brain is glitching out a little. Okay, so I believe the more we practice, connect, and unlearn our conditioned habits, beliefs, and emotional states and help others do the same, the more it will become apparent that this is a new path forward. And I think that if we have the power to literally change our brains, I'm living proof of it. I watched my body change and come back into balance just through intention and effort. I believe humanity does have the ability to rewire its conditioned programming away from mania, stress, violence, obedience, and reactivity toward peace, harmony, agency, and freedom. That's all I got for you. Thank you guys so much for being here and listening. Thank you.
Yeah, make some noise for Carrie Wedler, everybody. Who felt like they learned something? Anybody learn something new? For those who were here at the beginning of the presentation and you saw the video she shared, have you ever met anybody like that? Like the person screaming in the car? Somebody losing their mind left or right, maybe in the last couple of weeks? Getting pulled into that? You know, I just want to take a moment before we get to our next speaker, which let me first say our next speaker is going to be in Spanish, Donna Beck, and you definitely want to hear her. If you don't speak Spanish well, please quietly go get the headsets as we prepare for her to come up. I just wanted to mention this, though. There's so much division going on in our world, as we've seen since COVID, 1984, which was the reason we started this first event. And now the issues have changed and evolved, but there's still just as much division. Has anybody seen some of their friends who they thought knew what was going on during COVID seem to have lost their minds now? Anybody maybe seem to have principles at one point and now abandon those principles?
I think this got...
There's a lot going on in the world right now that I think is done on purpose to divide us and separate us. And what we're about at the People's Reset, and everybody at home who's tuned in, what we're about at the People's Reset is trying to bring people together. And so we know we don't all need to agree on every single topic, but just so you know, the principles that united and brought together this movement were bodily autonomy, self-ownership, voluntary and consensual relationships. Are these things that resonate with anybody in this room? Does anybody believe in those principles, those values? I hope so, because otherwise I'm not sure why you're here. But originally, again, largely, this movement got created as a response to all the craziness happening during COVID. You guys remember when the World Economic Forum announced the Great Reset in June 2020, and you guys saw those videos going viral? You know, I'm sure everybody here has heard the phrase, "You will own nothing and be happy." That was really the impetus or the reaction that got us moving. But now, just like we've rebranded from the Greater Reset to the People's Reset, we are really trying to chart a course forward. So I really hope that everybody who comes here, as much fun as you're having, you know, sometimes people call this a festival or a conference, but the reason we call it an activation is because we truly want you to come here, get activated, get informed, and then get inspired and go home and take the knowledge, take the new skills that you've learned, and take that fun that you've experienced back to your local communities. Because most of you aren't here in Morelia, you're going back somewhere else. And we need this energy to stay alive, this activation. And I've been saying for the last couple of years, I don't think it's enough to just be awake anymore. You know, whatever that means to you, awake, conscious, etc. Look at us, we're the enlightened ones. Okay, but what are you doing about it? You know? Okay, you've watched a bunch of documentaries, you listen to a lot of podcasts. What are you actually doing about it in your life? That's what matters. And so this movement and the People's Reset is all about trying to inspire and motivate you guys to take action under all the various themes we have, whether that's take action in your spiritual world, your mental, psychological world, take action when it comes to permaculture and growing food, take action when it comes to building parallel systems, take action when it comes to using privacy-based empowering technology, and take action when it comes to building communities, whatever that means to you. So we're really hoping that you guys get why we're coming here. And if you're coming year after year, we hope that year to year, your life is changing and growing and you're getting more free as the years go on. Because I don't know if you guys have been following mine and Miriam's individual journey, but when this event first started, we had just started the search for land. And as each year has progressed and we've come back from the People's Reset, now we have the land. Now we have a group of people we're building with. Just this last week, we got the roads paved on the land. Every year that I'm coming here, we are moving forward. And I hope that that's happening in your individual lives as well. So thank you all for being here. Now, before we get to Donna, and again, this next talk is in Espanol, so if you need interpreters, go see them. We want to highlight just for a moment for the people at home who are not here. As I said earlier, we have so many different workshops happening during the morning, the lunch break, and the evening. And it's a beautiful green space out there. Who loves the sunshine out there and hanging out in the green space? I mean, if we could have the whole event out there, we would. It's such a beautiful space. Let's go ahead and show that to the people at home, just a little taste of what's going on outside of the room that we'll...
I do think there needs to be.
Bobby's crew for filming that. Thank you guys all for being here. All right. Let's get ready for Miss Donna Beck. She is going to blow your mind. She is local here in Mexico, and she is somebody who is a powerful spiritual force. And I think you guys are all going to benefit from this. So I encourage you and invite you to give her your full attention. Please welcome Donna Beck to the stage.
Thank you. Let's see. Oh, there's my computer. What happened? Oh, my glasses. Oh, of course I did. Okay. Well, welcome everybody that's here. Bienvenidos a todos. I hope that you already have your headphones. Everybody has their headphones? Yes? Okay. Bueno, pues me presento para los que no me conocen. Yo soy Dan Beck, terapeuta y conferencista, creadora de una metodología de autosanación e integración consciente, que en primera instancia y en los primeros steps, en los primeros escalones, o el objetivo principal de esta metodología es crear un sistema donde puedas llegar al origen del origen del origen del origen en lo sutil, donde está sembrado todo aquello que nos lastima. Es una sola historia que vamos repitiendo inconscientemente, ya que somos seres creadores. Y quiero platicarles un poquito acerca de mi caminar y cómo llegué. Vamos a poner la primer slide, por favor. ¿Cómo llegué a esta metodología? Esta plática se llama el Código Secreto 11, la ingeniería de la transformación y de la conciencia. Y voy a conectar mi historia personal a cómo llegué con este código que quiero compartir con todos ustedes. Yo comencé este caminar desde chica, creciendo en una familia católica, con crecimiento católico. Ya saben, yo desde chiquita andaba hablando en la misa y todo esto, y siempre estuve preguntando, ¿no? Incluso cuando iba a hacer mi primera comunión, había que confesarnos. Y entonces yo le dije a mi catequista, pero si me acabas de decir que Dios está en todas partes y que yo tengo línea directa con Dios, ¿por qué tengo que ir con otro ser humano para que interceda en esa parte conmigo? Obviamente no me supo contestar. Fue con la Cordi, ¿verdad? Y le dijo a la Cordi, y la coordinadora le dijo, déjame, voy con el padre. Y el padre dijo, déjenla. Entendió la lección. Y entonces siempre me dijeron como la inquietita, y siempre tuve este fuego interno dentro de mí, de esa búsqueda de algo que tal vez no entendía, pero que sentía. Y como les menciono, a través de este crecimiento, de esta enseñanza de familiar católica, pues a pesar de que estoy yo muy metida, ¿verdad?, en la palabra, yo decía, pero ¿por qué es un Dios al que le tengo que temer o que me castiga? Y seguí caminando, ¿no? Seguí caminando porque sobre todo desde muy chica tuve visión, que en ese momento no sabía lo que estaba haciendo, simplemente era algo que experimentaba, que sentía, que veía, que dibujaba incluso cosas que yo decía garabatos, que después me topé en libros sagrados, ¿verdad? Y conforme mi caminar, con mi crecimiento, fui descubriendo qué fue lo que iba haciendo. Y como a los 19 años, más o menos, conocí al maestro de las 1000 sonrisas, Paramahansa Yogananda, y descubrí la meditación y dije, ándale, de esto es de lo que estoy hablando a través del Kriya Yoga, a través del amor, a través del equilibrio, a través del tejer. Y continué mi crecimiento, ¿verdad? Esta fue como la apertura que tuve para continuar con mi crecimiento. ¿Iban a poner por ahí la música? También ahí está la presentación. Y comencé con empecé con muchos maestros, empecé a recorrer también a los maestros de las montañas, comencé a también a instruirme con maestros que me hablan acerca de ciencia, con maestros contemporáneos, y me fui dando cuenta de cómo se va entretejiendo todo esto, ¿verdad? Y comencé con este movimiento. No recuerdo qué sucedió en el mundo en ese momento, que dije, no me puedo quedar sin hacer nada. Y entonces comencé a hacer meditaciones por la paz, ya saben, todos vestidos de blanco, de manera simultánea en varios países, en varios continentes, todos al mismo tiempo bajo una misma intención, bajo una misma intención. Sin embargo, conforme fui caminando, me di cuenta que tampoco es suficiente, porque este gran cambio que estamos demandando como humanidad no va a venir de unos cuantos o solamente vestirnos de blanco, sino de esa transformación, de esa paz interna de las células de este gran cuerpo llamado humanidad, que somos cada uno de nosotros. Porque si yo estoy tranquilo, si yo soy esa semilla que germina, entonces podemos ser esos superhéroes que podemos mover a toda una humanidad. Porque vamos a cambiar de la slide anterior, por favor. ¿Ok? Mientras las enseñanzas antiguas van resurgiendo y las tradiciones antiguas van resurgiendo y esta necesidad del despertar va resurgiendo, también la oscuridad ha sido muy astuta en irse disfrazando de luz. Y en lugar de irnos guiando hacia un entendimiento, hacia una solución, nos va alargando el proceso. Porque vamos pensando, vamos creyendo que es la medicina, que es la vela, que es el terapeuta, el que me va a sanar y que me va a resolver. Y si bien hay mucha enseñanza dentro de las tradiciones, si bien hay mucha magia dentro de esa ceremonia, nosotros somos quienes hacemos ese trabajo interno. Si bien la medicina, si bien todas esas enseñanzas son una llave, ¿verdad? Mas no son la solución, son solamente herramientas. Nosotros somos el maestro, nosotros somos quien hacemos esa chamba interna. Todo lo demás, herramientas, sí, si bien las medicinas son la llave que abre la puerta, pero tú tienes que cruzar el umbral. Tú tienes que cruzar el umbral. Nadie más lo puede hacer, ni el más sabio del mundo lo puede hacer. Así que durante todo este caminar que he tenido con los diferentes maestros, me fui a las montañas del desierto con los rarámuris, porque yo no aprendí de estar yendo más bien a ceremonias, yo entendí de los abuelos que estaban dentro de las tribus y de quedarme un año, año y medio, todo el día nada más te ibas a dormir y a continuar. Fui también un poco más al sur, todavía más al sur hasta Colombia, con los cofanes, sí, con todas las tradiciones también aquí mexicanas. Estuve en Oaxaca, estuve en Guadalajara, estuve subiendo el Quemado, estuve por selva literal, desierto. Yo soy del desierto, de Chihuahua, Chihuahua. Y arriba el norte y el que no que vea el mapa, dicen por ahí, ¿verdad? Okay, entonces, este desierto que me vio nacer y me fueron enseñando durante todo este camino acerca de sus enseñanzas. Ponemos la siguiente, por favor. Porque sobre todo en este camino, muchas veces queremos los milagros, pero no la enseñanza que gesta eso que llamamos milagro, porque nosotros somos los creadores. Nosotros desde nuestro pensamiento, desde nuestra emoción, desde nuestra palabra que le da forma a esa energía que siento y que emano, inconscientemente vamos también repitiendo esos patrones porque seguimos estando ahí, seguimos estando ahí, seguimos estando ahí. Y no va a ser a lo mejor una ceremonia que te va a hacer sentir bien, ¿verdad? A lo mejor unos 3 meses y después regresamos a lo mismo, al mismo patrón. Así que hay que encontrar los invito a todos a encontrar esa maestría interna, a lograr trascender a través de él. Porque nosotros como seres creadores, a través de esta energía, de esta palabra, la energía son la que le llamamos emociones aquí como en tercera dimensión. Cuando yo hablo de energía, estoy hablando de la materia prima, de la energía femenina. Como diría Hermes, todo comienza con un pensamiento, todo lo material surge de lo inmaterial. ¿Sí? Es decir, todo comienza con un pensamiento. De este pensamiento surge una interpretación del mismo, una creencia supuesta o real acerca de esto que yo pienso de mí, de la sociedad, del mundo, de etcétera, etcétera. Entonces, número uno, todo comienza con un pensamiento. Número dos, de este pensamiento surge una creencia, una verdad supuesta. Número tres, una interpretación. Número tres, de esta interpretación, nosotros literal emanamos ondas vibracionales, literal emanamos energía. Y es esta energía la que sentimos a través de nuestras células, la sentimos físicamente, pero nosotros la estamos gestando. Y las emociones son la materia prima femenina con la que literal gestamos todo. Todo, absolutamente todo. Por eso somos creadores. Hombres y mujeres tenemos energía femenina y masculina. La energía femenina que nos ayuda a gestar esa emoción. ¿Ok? Y la masculina, adivinen cuál es. La palabra. La palabra es la energía masculina que le va a dar forma a todas esas emociones que yo estoy gestando. Entonces, me pregunto yo, y te invito a que te observes cuando estés en alguna situación emocionalmente fuerte, como lo mencionaba hace rato en el panel. Yo tengo un secreto que le digo, conviértete en el observador. Conviértete en el observador, porque cuando te conviertes en el observador, se acaba el juego. Pero no el observador, no de las demás personas, sino el observador de mí. Y la forma de tener ese termómetro de cómo voy dentro de mi nivel de conciencia, lo puedo observar a través de lo que estoy gestando, a través de la persona que se está acercando a mí, a través de la situación que se está acercando a mí. Así que si queremos realmente esa transformación, comienza desde nuestra interpretación, comienza desde nuestro pensamiento, comienza desde ese acecho. Y no hay terapia ni buena, ni mala, ni la correcta, ni la más efectiva, porque para ti puede ser un camino y para mí otro. Por eso sabemos muchas manos, sabemos muchos corazones. Y en estos tiempos donde todo el mundo quiere varita mágica, Clint, tú ven a 3 ceremonias, te avientas 3 rezos, prendes 3 velitas y chazam, va a llegar el amor de tu vida. Pues no, al igual que no llegan otras cosas. Y si bien la ceremonia nos ayuda a hablarle a esta dimensión en su idioma, es tu energía de todo ese movimiento el que está haciendo esa magia. Porque la magia no es prender velitas o prender inciensos. La magia es una metodología sistemática que ordena, que sabe cómo utilizar la energía universal o las energías universales a mi favor para gestar algo. Y es un proceso que requiere de disciplina, es un proceso que requiere de ética, ¿ok? De ética. Y sobre todo tener la capacidad de ordenar el caos interno como externo. ¿O no les ha pasado alguna vez a ustedes que dicen, yo no sé cómo, porque a lo mejor no traigo dinero, porque a lo mejor no tengo el cómo, yo no sé cómo, pero el siguiente año, o sea, este año voy a estar en The People's Reset? ¿A poco no? Y algo pasó. Alguien canceló, algo se dio, algo lo que sea. Y entonces estamos aquí. Eso es generar causalidad. Eso es la magia. Porque repito, en este momento todos quieren el milagro, pero nadie quiere la enseñanza que lo manifiesta. Y es momento de ir revelando, de ir develando el secreto oculto para los guerreros, guardianes de lo eterno, que desde donde yo lo comprendo somos cada una de las personas que estamos aquí. Ya sea que vengan a talleres, ya sea que nada más vengan a escuchar las pláticas. Pero nosotros, como yo veo este movimiento, es un tejido. Porque ¿de cuántos países estamos aquí? Más o menos. ¿Ustedes saben? ¿Cómo cuántos países estamos aquí? 20. Ok. De 20 países, imagínense, si aquí venimos estas semillas y lo compartimos en 20 países, ¿somos o no somos esos superhéroes? ¿Somos o no somos esos superhéroes? Y como decíamos, no necesito hacer algo que se vea muy grande, con esa transformación interna, con esa palabra que yo comparto, puedo lograr un cambio de percepción, un cambio de mirada que puede realmente transformar un mundo entero. Y entonces sí convertirme en ese superhéroe, porque, insisto, si bien las medicinas, las tradiciones, las terapias son una herramienta poderosa, nada ni nadie va a poder hacer el trabajo por ti. Lo entendí perfecto la primera vez que le rompieron el corazón a una de mis hijas. Yo no sabía qué hacer. Yo iba al cuarto, le dije, te compró todo lo que le gustaba de comida, venía, iba a la cocina, lloré, le hablé a mi mamá, ¿verdad? Lloró mi mamá también y me dijo, mijita, pues no es más que lo mismo que compartes en todos lados. No puedes hacer este trabajo y no puedes sanar a nadie, ni a tus hijos. Y me quedó todavía muchísimo más claro. Muchísimo más claro. El único maestro que puede hacer ese cambio por cada uno de nosotros somos nosotros mismos. No hay atajos y sin transformación, sin integración, señores, no hay mariposa. Es indispensable nosotros hacer ese cambio y no nada más ese cambio de mentalidad sin hacer nada, sino un cambio real y verdadero en mi vida cotidiana, lo que llamamos cotidiano, ahorita, y ahorita, y ahorita, y ahorita, y así, no hay transformación. No hay un atajo, una varita mágica o algo. Y como caminante de estrellas en esta tierra, al igual que tú, y vaya que he caminado en esta ceremonia llamada vida, me topé con varios maestros, como les dije, estuve en casi todo México, ¿verdad? Estuve en Colombia, he estado en varios países aprendiendo de grandes maestros. Y entonces me di cuenta de algo mágico. ¿Están listos para que se los comparta? Porque cuando yo creé toda esta metodología, que estaba haciendo meditaciones por la paz y todos vestidos de blanco y todo esto, dije, no es suficiente. Y puse una asociación civil y también seguí trabajando con las mujeres, con los niños, con varias cosas, hasta que me di cuenta que no es suficiente y perdón que se lo repita, si queremos un cambio colectivo es indispensable mi transformación individual, mi cambio de mirada, porque insisto, no hay atajos. Y entonces yo me cuestionaba dentro de mi caminar, porque dicen, conviértete como en el Buda o en el Krishna o Jesús, que es el más conocido por acá, ¿no? Y yo les decía, pero es que si tú me pides que sea como Jesús, pues es como si me pidieras que yo fuera Superman y yo no vuelo, ni aviento rayos láser por mis ojos. ¿Sí? Yo no nací de una virgen, yo soy producto de una violación, de agresividad, de abuso. Yo no camino en las aguas, tampoco. Pero a través de toda esta enseñanza que fui adquiriendo a través de los tiempos, de mi propio tiempo, me di cuenta de la verdadera historia de cada uno de estos grandes iluminados. Y lo que descubrí es que ellos nacieron como humanos, con problemas políticos, familiares, personales, con circunstancias al igual que tú y yo. Entonces, si me voy al Superman de los libros que me explican por ahí, pues jamás podría ser como él, jamás. Pero si me dicen que todos estos grandes iluminados pasaron por un proceso humano, al igual que yo, por inseguridades, por problemas económicos, por problemas políticos, por problemas familiares, personales, etcétera, etcétera. Y que todos encontraron, y aquí está el secreto, un código 11. Y se los voy a demostrar. Vamos a seguir la siguiente slide, por favor. Nada más rapidito, porque de esto no se trata. per se la plática. Si nos vamos al Cábala, el árbol de la vida tradicional tiene 10 céfiras, 10 esferas, 10 emanaciones divinas, pero hay una oculta a la vista, que es el conocimiento, que es el salto cuántico, la sabiduría del yo comprendo. Y casi todas terminan en compartir, porque de nada sirve que solamente yo despierte si no comparto esa medicina. Viene desde acá y sale hacia acá, por eso nos abrazamos, ¿sí? Vamos ahora, otra corriente. The music never starts. Ok, vamos al budismo zen. Los 10 bueyes del maestro, las 10 etapas, pero aquí también hay uno oculto a la vista, que es uno implícito, que es el regreso al mundo cotidiano. ¿Sí? Una vez que ya pasé por estas 10 etapas, entonces ahora lo integro y lo vivo en mi vida todos los días. Ok, vámonos al hinduismo. ¿Sí estamos cambiando? Ay, solamente estoy yo viendo las. Ok. Ok, vámonos a los Upanishads. Y ellos hablan de un palacio de 11 puertas. Ok, entonces si bien hay 108 Upanishads, hay 11 Upanishads principales. Ok. ¿Cómo vamos por allá? Vamos en hinduismo. Ok. Entonces la enseñanza clave es: tú eres eso, el ser individual, es como la realidad universal, los 11 textos que guían a la realización. Nos vamos al siguiente, la cultura azteca. La cultura azteca habla que tenemos 5 soles, pero son 11 cielos. Entonces, una vez que pasamos por estos 11 cielos, podemos integrar, podemos llegar a este código interno. Si nos vamos a la cultura Hopi, la cultura Hopi habla de 11 clanes originarios, es decir, la sabiduría de estas 11 tribus, si las juntas, van creando todo el ciclo completo. Si nos vamos a la cultura inca, los queros, no sé si sepan que los queros estuvieron aislados de toda civilización hasta hace algunos años. Y resulta y resalta que los queros también hablan de un código 11, ¿ok? Hablan acerca de las 11 cumbres, de los 11 apus. Los apus son los espíritus de las montañas. Entonces, ya sea que tú subas esas 11 cumbres físicamente o espiritualmente, vas adquiriendo la sabiduría de cada una de estas cumbres, que representa un desarrollo espiritual, un desarrollo dentro de la visión. Y una vez que cumples estas 11 cumbres, entonces vas adquiriendo la sabiduría entera. Y entonces a compartir. Pero vámonos a la ciencia, vámonos a la física cuántica. Para los que necesiten ciencia, también se los explico con ciencia. Y me encanta el juego de palabras. La física cuántica, la teoría M, habla de 11 dimensiones, 3 dimensiones espaciales, 1 dimensión temporal y 7 dimensiones enrolladas o compactadas. Si nos vamos, y la onceava dimensión, como en todas, es la que unifica todas las fuerzas y el universo y gesta esta realidad que estamos sintiendo. Pero ahora vámonos al Cristo. Ok, si nos vamos a la enseñanza oculta de Cristo, porque luego cuando les preguntamos a los sacerdotes me dicen, no, tú estás hablando del Jesús histórico. Y dije, bueno, ok, 2. Es una misma historia. Si nos vamos a ese Jesús histórico, si nos vamos a la verdadera enseñanza oculta de Cristo, habla de 11 iniciaciones. 11 iniciaciones. ¿Ok? 11 etapas iniciáticas desde el nacimiento, el bautismo, las tentaciones, el llamado a los discípulos, primeros milagros, etcétera, etcétera, etcétera. Pero al final del día, la clave de Cristo, según José Luis París, es el reino de los cielos está dentro de nosotros. Y no sé, pero si nos vamos al Cábala, si nos vamos a los Upanishads, si nos vamos al budismo zen, si nos vamos a todos los antes mencionados, ¿se fijan que es lo mismo, más o menos palabras? Pero ahora vamos a hablar un poquito acerca del mapa de Pierce y de José Luis París, que habla de los 11 pasos de la magia. 11 pasos, ¿se fijan cómo todas las grandes enseñanzas, tanto antiguas como contemporáneas, traen escrito ese código 11. Entonces, si tú me dices, ¿sabes qué? A través de estos 11 pasos u 11 etapas, pasamos a la última diapositiva. Si tú me dices a través de estos 11 pasos, entonces yo me puedo iluminar siendo el maestro de mi vida, como humano, como caminante de estrellas en la tierra. Entonces le entro. Porque entonces es posible, porque yo nací humana. Y entonces puedo encontrar el puente entre lo divino y lo humano en mí, en esta vida. Porque díganme si no, siempre que hablamos acerca de espiritualidad o de sanación, tendemos a querernos irnos en la mente lejos, allá a lo no material, o llamamos a lo no material como lo espiritual o lo divino. Y si bien lo etéreo siempre está y siempre ha estado, incluso cuando en materia ya no estamos, siempre existe, sí. Pero la materia, esta ceremonia de la vida, los momentos, los instantes, son únicos e irrepetibles, tan pequeños que tienden a cero, y de la nada surge todo. El volumen, lo que podemos tocar, sentir, abrazar, comer, y de repente ya no está. Se fue para siempre. Y si se te pasó juzgándote, sufriendo, llorando, incriminándote, entonces se te pasó para siempre. Y estaba ese momento junto a ti. Así que estos momentos dentro de la vida son únicos e irrepetibles. Esa es la verdadera espiritualidad. Antes de irnos a otras vidas, a otras dimensiones, a otras realidades, esta es la divinidad. Esta es la ceremonia llamada vida. Y así como cuando nos chumamos, ¿verdad? Con ayahuasca, con niños santos, con jicuri o con otras medicinas, yo le llamo que nos chumamos con esta cosa que se llama vida. ¿Y qué crees? Vas a despertar. Así que tic-tac, 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 que no se te pase con indiferencia. Porque si se te pasa, se te pasó para siempre. Y sabes qué, bueno, si este momento se te pasó, pues que no se te pase el que sigue y el que sigue y el que sigue. Porque si tú amas para siempre, si tú te aplicas a ti dentro de tu transformación para siempre, que es ahorita y ahorita y ahorita y ahorita y así, entonces podemos amarnos para siempre. Y encontrar esa maestría dentro de mí, porque díganme si no, cuando hay una situación fuerte, que la opción no es un no, pasa la magia, la causalidad que resuelve todo. Cuando el cómo no importa, porque el cómo no importa, a lo mejor para ti o para tus creencias o para mis creencias hay limitaciones y entonces no hay cómo y no hay solución, pero el universo, Dios o como le quieras llamar, tiene absolutamente todas las posibilidades y entonces de esto hablan estos 11 pasos para literal gestar lo imposible, porque ahí en lo imposible es desde donde trabajamos los magos, desde donde trabaja la magia, hasta por ejercicio. Es imposible, ahorita vemos como sí, sin el cómo mental, solamente es y doy la instrucción. Yo gesto con mi pensamiento, con la energía femenina y le doy forma con mi palabra. El cómo no es mi pedo. A ver cómo traducen eso los traductores. No es mi bronca, ¿ok? Nosotros somos esa magia. Y nosotros acabamos de terminar todos juntos como humanidad un ciclo 9, un ciclo de 9 años que va relacionado en adquirir un alto nivel de conciencia, pero a través de cierres kármicos. Y el karma no es algo para que sufra el canalla o pague la desgraciada, no. El karma es una ley de aprendizaje, de conciencia a través de la experiencia. Y no es ni siquiera algo que hayas hecho, no, con que lo hayas pensado, con que lo hayas juzgado. Desde ahí comienza esta gran maestría de la ley del karma tan amorosa, porque entonces te dice, perfecto, ponte los zapatitos, camina el camino Y ahí me platicas qué fue lo que viste. Esa es la ley del karma. Entonces, yo no sé qué está pasando en tu vida, pero ¿a poco no? Sobre todo este año pasado que acaba de pasar en un año 9, que termina el ciclo de 9 años, toda la muerte y la destrucción, que no es necesariamente algo negativo, sino a través de la muerte y la destrucción, la misma naturaleza nos lo dice. Ese árbol, todo lo que cae del árbol va generando la composta, el microambiente, donde se generan los nutrientes para la raíz de esa planta, de ese árbol, para que ese árbol tenga más fuerza, para que ese árbol de más flores y amores y aromas y sombra y explote cada vez más y surge una fruta y de la fruta surjan más semillas y de la semilla surge más vida. De igual forma que eso que se muere de estos últimos 9 años, eso que te duele, eso que se destruyó, eso que te rompió o que te movió, que sea la información que nutre tu espíritu, la raíz, para que lo único que surja a través de tus relaciones sea el amor. Flexible para no romperme y fuerte a la vez para entonces poder dar una vez llena. Y entonces que dé más frutos y entonces volverme a convertir en semilla y generar más vida. De la muerte y de la destrucción es desde donde se gesta y estamos iniciando un año 1, el año del caballo de fuego. ¿Sí? El caballo de fuego que nos impulsa a esta transformación verdadera. Si hace 9 años estuvo fuerte, esta requiere de un compromiso profundo en cada uno de nosotros, porque el número 1 también es integrar todo el trabajo como humanidad, como grupo, en lo colectivo de lo trabajado, para poder dar este salto. Porque no sé si han notado dentro de las generaciones, ¿verdad? Primero empezamos en la etapa de supervivencia y lo podemos ver en nuestra propia vida. Cuando somos bebés, nada más queremos comer, bañar, ¿verdad? Ir al baño, vamos a llamarlo así, ¿ok? Lo básico y lo indispensable. Si nos vamos a la historia de la humanidad, es cuando andábamos apenas prendiendo el fuego, cazando con lanzas. Ajá. Luego viene la etapa mágica. ¿Sí? Cuando empezamos a hablarle al sol, a hablarle a las montañas, a hacer nuestros rituales, ¿sí? Que también si nos vamos a nuestra vida humana, es en ese momento. ¿Se acuerdan cuando estábamos niños que todo era mágico? Prendía la luz, ¡wow! ¿Sí? Todo era mágico. Entonces, vamos a integrar todos estos niveles de conciencia a través de las etapas. Luego comienza el poder personal, el yo puedo. Luego viene el orden, la verdad, lo bueno y lo malo, el seguir las indicaciones, lo que dice el maestro, lo que dice la ciencia. ¿Ok? Y después venimos al racionalismo, a la ciencia. Solamente lo que me dice la ciencia es cierto. Y luego nos vamos, que es en el proceso donde se encuentra, desde donde yo lo veo mayormente la humanidad ahorita, que es esta parte de integración, de comunidad, de igualdad, de no solamente yo soy importante, no solamente yo importo, de esa parte de la empatía. Y se fijan cómo todas las generaciones han ido peleando entre una etapa y la otra, ¿sí? Las diferentes generaciones. Las diferentes etapas. Bueno, estamos ahorita en una etapa donde no somos ni supervivencia, ni mágicos, sino somos todos. Todas. Y el trabajo que estamos haciendo hoy, aquí, ahorita y en nuestra vida les va a permitir a las siguientes generaciones que podamos llegar a la siguiente etapa de conciencia, la 8, donde hay una conciencia planetaria, no nada más tú y yo importamos, sino todo está conectado. Así que en este año 1 de Caballo de Fuego es momento de seguir a las mujeres fuertes, a las mujeres que luchan, a las mujeres que han encontrado su sagrado femenino, que no compiten ni con ellos, ni por ellos, ni con ellas, ni nada. Es momento de seguir a las mujeres porque mujeres, si nosotras logramos sanar todas esas heridas, y logramos realmente integrarlas y sentirnos en nuestro sagrado femenino, podemos entonces mostrar a nuestros hijos, a nuestros hombres, a nuestra comunidad, el arte, nuestra verdadera fortaleza como mujeres, porque la fortaleza de la mujer no es poder igual que el hombre, no es ser fuerte como ellos o con ellos o no me vayan a hacer algo, no. Hemos perdido con toda esta liberación femenina muy válida, pero creo que nos hemos ido del otro lado completamente. Y hemos aprendido a ser duras, ¿verdad? A ser fuertes, a competir. Pero queridas, la verdadera fuerza, la verdadera fortaleza de la mujer no es esta, sino es la fuerza del agua del amor. El agua, con su sutil acariciar constante, puede transformar hasta la piedra más dura y lastimada. Así que sí, es momento de seguir a estas mujeres fuertes dentro de su feminidad, que saben acerca del arte del amor. Y ojo, el amor y todas las energías sutiles que surgen del amor, la compasión, la ilusión, etcétera, etcétera, tienen un ingrediente en especial, todas, absolutamente todas, tienen armonía, orden. El amor es orden, ni de más ni de menos. Y si nosotros nos recuperamos después de toda esa liberación, porque ¿qué pasa en esta generación? Le estamos aventando todo ese odio, no nada más de esta generación a nuestros hombres, sino de un montón de generaciones lastimadas y abusadas. Entonces, imagínate, tú puedes sola, pues dale. Pero si nosotras las mujeres nos recuperamos de todo ese dolor, si esta generación de mujeres logra abrazar todas esas heridas y del sagrado femenino, es decir, desde el amor, ni de más ni de menos, entonces podemos sostener los corazones de nuestros hombres y los hombres pueden sostener los corazones del mundo. Así que sí, es momento de seguir a las mujeres, es momento de reencontrar nuestra fuerza y nuestro poder, que no es este, es este. Como el agua acariciar, pero firme también como es, que puede abrir caminos y también puede nutrirlos. Así, porque entonces podemos sostener los corazones de nuestros hombres, bueno, de nuestro hombre. Y entonces educar a nuestros hijos y a nuestras hijas con esta misma sabiduría y hacer un cambio, volverte ese superhéroe, esa superheroína en tu casa, en tu trabajo, en lo que haces para siempre. Porque nosotros podemos utilizar diferentes energías y poner límites. Podemos poner límites desde la confrontación, desde nuestras heridas, y podemos poner límites desde la humildad. Y quiero compartirles un poco acerca de la definición de humildad, porque yo la traía como bien desubicada. Creo que tenemos la falsa idea que la humildad es hacerme chiquito, que no se note tanto lo bueno que hago, etcétera, etcétera. ¿O qué opinan ustedes acerca de humildad, así rápidamente? Es como con sencillez, como, ay, hice esta buena obra desde la humildad, sin mostrar. ¿Y cuál fue mi sorpresa? Porque ya que somos un mundo, un diccionario de interpretaciones, yo me voy al diccionario, porque debe de haber un punto de encuentro para podernos comunicar eficientemente, porque si no, compasión para ti es una cosa y para ti es otra cosa y para mí es otra cosa, y entonces no nos podemos comunicar. ¿Y cuál fue mi sorpresa? Que cuando voy en el diccionario, me aprendí perfecto, así palabra por palabra, la definición de humildad. La definición comenzaba no con esconder, sino mostrar con sencillez mis talentos, habilidades y fortalezas y utilizarlas por el bien. Repito, mostrar con sencillez mis talentos, habilidades y fortalezas y utilizarlas para el bien. Y esto no quiere decir nada más para ir a visitar ancianos o ayudar personas en el hospital. Es mi bienestar, mi bien sentir, mi bien abrazar, mi bien compartirme, mi bien proveer, mi bien trabajar. Desde la humildad nosotros podemos valorando quiénes somos. Es como cuando alguien pasa por ti en un carro así como medio sucio, con basura por aquí, basura por allá, todo colgando, pues a lo mejor si vienes comiendo algo a la hora de subirte, ¿verdad? A la hora de subirte no vas a tener tanta cuidado o precaución, ¿verdad? A lo mejor te terminas lo que estabas comiendo y por ahí dejas el vaso o lo que sea. Sin embargo, cuando alguien llega en un camionetón o en, ya sabes, en un coche súper limpio. Ya ves que traen tapetitos, ¿verdad? Para que te limpies ahí los pies. Bueno, a mí me gustaría, muchas veces, ¿a poco no les pasa a ustedes? Limpiarte los pies antes de llegar a ese tapetito, porque está tan lindo que dejas lo que estabas comiendo ahí y no vayas a ensuciar, ¿correcto? Bueno, cuando nosotros trabajamos desde la humildad, desde esa sencillez, respetando quiénes somos y valorando quiénes somos, no más lo que es igual que esa camioneta o que ese carro sucio o muy limpio. Las personas, si tú llegas en el carro limpio, van a prestar cuidado antes de entrar a territorio sagrado que es tu vida. Esa es la humildad. Reconocernos, con esa palabra empieza. Reconocer con sencillez mis talentos, habilidades y fortalezas y utilizarlas para el bien. Porque nosotros somos esos superhéroes que podemos hacer un cambio completo. ¿Desde dónde? Desde mi casa, desde mi trabajo, desde donde voy caminando, desde lo que sí puedo hacer y tomar todas esas heridas y todas esas emociones que surgen en mí, emocionalmente fuertes, la ira, la desesperanza, la tristeza, tomarlas y recordar que la materia no se crea, es decir, las emociones no se crean y se destruyen, solamente se transforman y entonces puedo tomar toda esa fuerza y cambiar la polaridad y utilizarla para compartirme, para compartir. Y entonces sí, poder lograr un cambio colectivo todos juntos. Listo. Ay, todos por acá. ¿O 5 minutes? Ok, excelente. Entonces, los que quieran saber un poco más de este código, ahorita no me quise adentrar tanto en cada uno de los temas y hace rato entendí que tenía 5, entonces aceleré un poquito la presentación. Ok, pero los invito a checar las etapas de la conciencia para ver en qué momento me encuentro yo en esta vida y recordar que no es una cosa lineal, simplemente hay momentos en nuestra vida donde estamos en una posición o estamos en otra, pero siempre te recuerdo regresar a ti una y otra vez para realmente compartirnos, para realmente sentirnos, que te vayas a ese desierto de la soledad, ya sea corriendo, ya sea en meditación, ya sea cantando, ya sea lo que sea, te tomes el tiempo de ir a ese momento de soledad donde nadie te aplaude, donde nadie te ve, donde nadie te juzga y que te des ese tiempo para ti. Porque ahí, en ese espacio donde no nos podemos mentir, es donde podemos observar y sobre todo observar qué sentimos. Muchas veces no sabemos ni siquiera lo que sentimos, pero aquello es preciso e importante observarlo. Y si tienes dudas, vete al diccionario a ver qué emoción es la que estoy sintiendo ahorita. Para tener claridad y entonces desde la claridad poderme compartir. En estos momentos de transformación, en estos momentos de cambio, es preciso y aparte la energía nos está apoyando, nos está impulsando, porque el trabajo lo hacemos nosotros, pero tenemos la fuerza de la energía. Es como cuando vas a entrar al mar, ¿verdad? Puedes entrar al mar en contra de la ola y vas a batallar un montón y te va a revolcar y te va a hacer y deshacer, ¿verdad? Pero si te conviertes en el observador, lo que te da los pasos de la magia o de las iniciaciones o como les quieras tú llamar, lo que te da es esa sabiduría para observar la ola y entonces meterte con la ola del espíritu y tú vas a ir haciendo el trabajo, pero traes toda la fuerza de la energía tras de ti. Así que convirtámonos en esos superhéroes que podemos realmente cambiar un mundo entero desde donde estamos. Muchas gracias, que tengan una gran tarde. Y si hay alguna duda, por favor, háganmelo saber.
Muchas gracias, Dana. Gracias.
Yeah. Turn it up.
More applause for her, please. Please make some noise for Donna Beck. Thank you so much for being here with her. Thank you, everybody at home. We've got one more presentation. Who's got some energy for another presentation? Final presentation of day one of the People's Reset. This next one is going to be in English, so if you need the headphones, do check those out. Or if you want to quietly return yours. I'm going to mention a couple of things, though, before we get to our final speaker here real quick. This is going to be a great talk. First of all, as I mentioned earlier, tonight we will be screening the final conclusion of my 17-part documentary series called The Pyramid of Power. If anybody's been following or watching along at home, this has been a 5-year journey for me to get to this point, and it just came out today, not publicly yet. You guys will be the first to see it ever if you want to see it. It's an hour and a half long. It goes very deep, and it ends with solutions. And then immediately after that, about 10-15 minutes after that, there will be the Freak of Nature comedy show tonight and dance party if you want to get down. Carlin Altman's going to be hosting that. It's all going to be 432 hertz music. If you want to get some good vibes, come laugh, come share your story, your awakening journey. It's going to be a good time. And of course, there's going to be workshops going on outside. There's going to be so much happening. So please do hang out with us tonight if you'd like to do that. And then one other thing we want to highlight for those at home, we showed you outside what it looks like in the green space. Now we want to give you a look at the
People want the in person.
What's up? We have the People's Reset.
One of the things that really helps us with is spiritual because él es de Chiapas.
There we go. Awesome. So our final speaker of day one, Liberate Your Mind, Body, and Soul, is somebody who I think many of you out there listen to. Who's heard of the Way Forward podcast? Who's seen the Way? Yeah, make some noise for the Way Forward podcast. I'm lucky enough to have been a guest on there 2 times. Very grateful for that. This man is somebody who is challenging paradigms, getting people to think for themselves and focused on how we can build that better world. He's also a voluntarist, somebody who believes that we, the people, can come together and build that better world without government. And yeah, it really gets us to rethink everything about our health, about our world, everything really. I love going down the rabbit hole with this, guys. Please give a warm welcome to Alex Zek, everyone.
One second. Is that good? Okay. How's everyone doing? Do the cheesy, no, that wasn't loud enough. How's everyone doing? It's an honor to be here. I'm so grateful to be here with you people. Anytime I surround myself with others who get it, I like to fast for a little bit because I don't feel like I need any food. And so I've been doing a fast throughout this event, and I'm going to end that tomorrow. And I feel like I'm being nourished by the vibes of everyone here. So I appreciate all of you so much. Okay. Who feels like this is accurate description? If you could throw my slides up, please, that'd be great. Who feels like this is an accurate description of the world right now? Raise your hand. Yeah. It's hard for me to see the hands go up. Raise your hands high. Who feels like that's an accurate description of the world? Who said not my world? That's where we're going, buddy. But for the most of us, how much of that is actually this? And how much of that is actually more like this? And how much are we focusing on this to where even when we put it down, we become this? Sincerely, I want you, as I'm doing this talk, to take an inventory for yourself throughout this talk. Does this apply to you? It's not meant to shame you. It's not meant to bypass the real tragedies that are going on in the world. There's a lot of crazy stuff happening. And you may go home from this event and be in a chaotic, tumultuous situation yourself. And I acknowledge that. But we're going to talk about how we change the world. So I feel like a lot of us are afraid that if we aren't aware that world will become our world. I feel like that's why we turn to our phones, other than the addiction and the coping mechanisms and things like that. How many of us find ourselves doing that? Like we want to stay aware of what's going on, because if we're not aware, then that world is going to become my world here. I want you to take an inventory throughout this talk. So what can we do to prevent that world from becoming your world? How do you really change the world? Some context. This may seem a little bit of an abrupt transition, but it'll all tie together. Okay, so you are 2/3 water by weight and 99% water molecularly. But the water that's inside of you isn't liquid. That's why you're not sloshing around, right? The water inside of you is ordered. Who's heard of the 4th phase of water? If you've listened to my podcast, you probably have. Okay, so this guy by the name of Dr. Gerald Pollack and another guy before him by the name of Gilbert Ling have demonstrated, I would say irrefutably at this point, that water, when it's exposed to hydrophilic surfaces, forms this almost gel-like structure, which is why it's called the 4th phase of water. And the area that is next to the hydrophilic surface forms a high negative charge, okay? And then the area beyond that, it pushes out any impurities, solutes, toxins, and positively charged ions and particles to the periphery. And the area next to the hydrophilic surface itself is almost like H3O2 rather than H2O. It's like a gel. And just for some context, negative charge is stored potential energy with respect to charge separation. What happens when you have negative charge next to positive charge? You have a battery, okay? This is why it's important. Hydrophilic surfaces are ubiquitous in the human body, meaning there's a lot of them. You're comprised of water and hydrophilic surfaces. So this is the water that you're comprised of. And so Dr. Pollack, I'm going to run through this pretty quickly. Dr. Pollack in his lab has demonstrated that if you shine infrared light on this type of water, that area of negative charge, which again you could say is stored potential energy, expands. He's also demonstrated that when you shine light on, this is a Nafion tube, so it's a hydrophilic tube sitting in water, and again, that's forming this 4th phase exclusion zone water, colloquially called EZ water. So when you shine infrared light on EZ water with this Nafion tube, it produces continuous flow. They've also powered small lamps and LEDs with this type of water. So it quite literally is a water battery. So I don't know if cells actually exist as we think they do, but the point still stands that the things that cause EZ, and you could say EZ is like stored potential energy, EZ water, things that cause EZ water to grow are things like grounding. Putting your bare feet on the earth, you receive negative charge from the earth. So that's going to give your body more negative charge, which is stored potential energy for your body. Infrared light. So light from the sun, getting plenty of time in the sun, especially at morning and night, and then during the afternoon when we also get UV, because UV also excites the negative charge. Eating real foods, breathing deeply. Dr. Pollack has put out a really interesting paper postulating that we actually don't breathe oxygen, we breathe charge by cleaving off an electron from the oxygen molecules. Healing sounds, time in nature, coherent water, movement, presence. This helps maintain the coherence of the waters of our body. And what causes EZ to shrink? Lack of natural light, heavy metals, glyphosate. And these 4, going back to the phone, dehydration, artificial light, chronic stress, and non-native EMFs. That's what you're loading yourself with when you spend perpetual amount of time on your phone or on devices. And they're a helpful tool. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing in the world if it wasn't for them. It's not all bad. Okay, so things that supercharge the waters of our bodies, helping us access a coherent state. So we're all about self-ownership here, right? How many of us can honestly say, and if that's you, that's awesome, that we're doing all of these things on a consistent basis? You don't need to raise your hand, show-offs. I didn't say raise your hand. Me, I am. I'm just kidding. That's good. That's awesome. That's awesome. And that's what we need. Every hand in this room should be going up. Versus how many of us are continuing to consume fear-based content about the world on a consistent basis? Honestly, take an honest inventory. Yeah. And are you doing this just as consistently as you're consuming the fear-based content of the world? So I highlighted one category here, dissolving conditioned beliefs, thoughts, and feelings, and I want to get into that a little bit. So I think most of us can accept that our beliefs, thoughts, and feelings are what color or inform our words and actions. Can we accept that, acknowledge that? Yeah. I mean, you wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be acting as a voluntarist. You wouldn't be speaking as a voluntarist if it weren't for dissolving the conditioned belief around statism and your thoughts and feelings associated with it, right? But I would actually venture to say that our beliefs, thoughts, and feelings are themselves causal vectors with respect to our physiology, our bodies, and also the nature of reality itself. I'm going to share exactly why. Okay, who's heard of the nocebo effect? So the nocebo effect is the inverse of the placebo effect, where essentially you're given an inert substance and you are told that it might produce negative effects. And just based on that belief alone, because the substance is inert, your body physically expresses the effects that you believed you would experience. And there are plenty of examples of this in the literature. I'll let you read this one while I get a sip of water. Could you just put my slides on, like make it full screen almost? And I had some pretty extensive graphs. I hope the fourth phase water thing made sense. I'm sure some of you are like, what the hell? Okay, but so here's one example. Oral wounds were given to students during both exam week and vacation. During exams, wounds healed 40% slower and levels of interleukin-1, a key immune and healing molecule, dropped by 2/3. This study shows how mental stress and belief in pressure or threat can actively impair the immune system and delay recovery. There are thousands of examples of this, but I'm just going to highlight a few. So this one, participants were told to either expect pain relief, placebo, or increased pain, nocebo, from a saline injection. Those expecting more pain experience a measurable cortisol spike and higher pain ratings despite receiving nothing harmful. So their body literally produced chemistry associated with the belief that they were getting something harmful. The expectation of pain caused a stress hormone response, essentially manufacturing harm from belief alone. In this one, in a controlled study, 40 asthmatics inhaled what they were told was an allergen or irritant. In reality, it was harmless nebulized saline. Nearly half of the asthmatics developed measurable airway constriction, and 12 had full asthma attacks, which were all reversed when they were told they were receiving a medicine, which was, again, just nebulized saline. None of the controls reacted, meaning the people who didn't receive the treatment. Belief alone triggered and then relieved the attacks. Isn't this incredible? Isn't that incredible? This one, in this clinical trial by the British Stomach Cancer Group, 411 stomach cancer patients were divided into groups, including one that received only placebo saline injections. Patients were warned about typical chemotherapy side effects like hair loss and vomiting. Despite receiving no actual chemotherapy, over 30% of the placebo group lost their hair and 56% experienced vomiting. This striking result demonstrates how negative expectation alone can produce real, harmful physiological symptoms, one of the clearest examples of the nocebo effect in oncology. Okay, inventory time again. What conditioned beliefs, thoughts, and feelings are you carrying around each day, and how is that impacting your ability to be coherent? Read some of these. Maybe some of them resonate with you. Maybe some that you have recurring repetitively in your head are popping up right now. How is that expressing in your physiology? How is that impacting your ability to be coherent? This is where the work is. Okay, Luckily, we have the inverse of that, the placebo effect. So this one, in this creative experiment, participants received identical skin wounds but were misled about how much time had passed since the injury. When participants believed that more time had elapsed, their wounds healed significantly faster, even though the actual time was the same for everyone. This showed that the belief about time alone had the power to directly accelerate biological healing. This one, patients were given a placebo that they were told was a powerful pain reliever. They reported genuine pain relief, but when naloxone, I think that's how you pronounce it, a drug that blocks opioid receptors, was administered, the pain relief vanished. This clearly indicates that placebo belief had triggered the body's own release of endorphins and that this effect was biochemically real. This one is both placebo and nocebo, and it's really sad, actually. Mr. Wright, a terminal cancer patient, was given a placebo he believed to be a miracle drug. His tumor shrank dramatically. When he later learned the treatment was ineffective, the tumor returned. But when given another placebo, this time described as a new and improved version, his tumors disappeared again. When he finally discovered the truth, he declined rapidly and passed. This case demonstrates just how potent belief can be even in life or death scenarios. Okay, this one is pretty wild too. Hotel room attendants performed the same daily task for 4 weeks, but one group was told that their work met the Surgeon General's recommendation for exercise. It's already troublesome that they're taking health advice from the government, but that's okay. The other group received no such framing. Though neither group changed their behavior, the informed group experienced measurable improvements in weight loss, lower blood pressure, and reduced body fat. Their bodies responded physiologically not to what they did, but to what they believed about what they did. So remember when Carrie was talking earlier that like we can do all the practical solutions and things like this, and yes, that's incredibly important. Totally, and please attend all the talks, and I talk about them myself. I host them on my podcast and my own events. I am willing to go out on a limb and say that those will not be as effective as they could be if you are not resolving your own beliefs, thoughts, and feelings, your conditioned ones. So again, self-ownership. Beliefs, thoughts, and feelings not only inform our words and actions, they are themselves causal vectors with respect to our own physiology, impacting our ability to be coherent. But what if it goes beyond that? What if our beliefs, thoughts, and feelings are causal vectors with respect to the nature of reality itself? Who buys that? Who's like, no, that's too woo-woo, man? Yeah, okay. More context. Who's heard of Veda Austin? Who actually, no, put your hands down. Who's not heard of Veda Austin? What are you doing? Like, you're going to want to hear Veda Austin after this. Okay, this is a screen grab from the thumbnail for the episode that I recorded with Veda. Her work has been incredibly impactful on my life, and I am fortunate to call her a dear friend of mine and my wife's. So Veda, what she does is she's basically expanded on the work of Dr. Masaru Emoto, and she'll take water in a petri dish and expose it to a written word, a picture, a painting, play a song next to the water, speak to the water, set water next to her with intention to, like for water to learn about how she's feeling. Have someone thousands of miles away set the intention to project what they're thinking onto the water that Veda is holding. And then she does this freezing method, freezing the water for a specific amount of time. And here's what comes up in the water. So this is a picture of a face on the left, and water, when it is set over the top of that face in the petri dish, and then frozen, this is what shows up. And then another example, written number 4. What's displayed in the water? And another one. And another one. Sound like DJ Khaled. Another one. But the point is, Veda has tens of thousands of examples like this. And what's even more incredible is that she's teaching workshops to people across the world who are doing the exact same thing and getting the exact same results. To the degree that Veda has identified what she calls hydroglyphs, which is where water shows the same image in its crystallography, which is the frozen imagery, repeatedly given when exposed to a specific stimulant. She has identified that that is water's word, if you want to call it that, or water's language for that thing. So for example, if Veda is feeling gratitude, or she's playing a song that represents gratitude, or she writes gratitude in English, Spanish, Mandarin, whatever, sets water over the top of it, water will always reflect back a six-pointed leaf. And water will reflect back complex sentences with multiple symbols in it. And again, she's teaching this to other people and they're getting the exact same results. Isn't that incredible? Okay, again, you are 2/3 water by weight and 99% water molecularly. Virtually all life forms are primarily composed of water, and water permeates all facets of this reality. So, what beliefs, thoughts, and feelings about others in the world are you carrying around each day? And what impact is that having not only on you, but reality itself? Given that Veda has demonstrated clearly belief, thought, and feeling when aligned, which I like to call thought energy, has a direct impact on the physical orientation of water. Water literally changes based on a metaphysical, if you want to call it that, stimulus repeatedly. So what might our own thought energy, what impact might our own thought energy be having on reality? Like this, the world is too divided, it can't be fixed. Agenda 2030 is coming and we're screwed. Insert anyone is an evil POS. I hate, literally any of these conditioned beliefs about others or the nature of reality. Especially this one. We're just a small minority. They are more powerful than us. Okay, so mass nocebo effect, also called mass psychogenic illness or mass social contagion. There are some pretty wild examples of this as well. So this one, in 2021, doctors in Germany began seeing a sudden wave of teenagers showing up with severe, sudden onset tics, yelling obscenities, hitting themselves, et cetera, et cetera. The symptoms were labeled as Tourette's, but something was off. They didn't match classic Tourette's patterns and were far too complex, dramatic, and widespread. Researchers traced it to one source, a popular YouTube channel called, Danny, do you want to say that in German for me since you're a German guy? Gewitter im Kopf. Thunderstorm in the Brain, where a social media influencer with Tourette's posted viral videos showcasing extreme attention-grabbing behaviors. After watching this content, teens began unconsciously mimicking the symptoms, often word for word, tick for tick. This one is wild. Oh, this is out of place. That's all right. Okay, this one is insane. In 2017, a antidepressant had just gone off patent in New Zealand, so other companies were allowed to make their own generic versions of it. So a bunch of people were put on this generic version of the drug, and they began reporting side effects to this generic version. And there were 27 common side effects reported across the board, okay, to whatever New Zealand's adverse event reporting system is. When the mainstream media decided to run a story on the side effects in this drug, they only listed 6 of the 27 common symptoms. They broadcast the message to the masses, listing only 6 of those 27 common symptoms. And what happened afterwards is that there was a massive spike in adverse events reports by 467%, exclusively for the exact symptoms the media had spotlighted. And then it happened again, and then a 700% surge, and then a 400% jump in suicidal ideation reports. In 2006, over 300 students across 14 schools in different parts of Portugal suddenly began reporting symptoms like rashes, dizziness, breathing difficulty, and even seizures. Schools were shut down and panic spread. Just days earlier, the wildly popular teen soap opera, Strawberries with Sugar, I'm not going to say that in Spanish because we're in a Spanish-speaking country and I don't want to butcher it, aired an episode about a deadly virus spreading through a school. The resemblance was striking and their reach was massive. With a 42% national viewing share, nearly half the country's televisions were tuned in when the episode aired, embedding the story deep into the public psyche. The symptoms that followed weren't random or isolated. They appeared simultaneously across geographically separate schools with no physical connection or shared environmental cause. So this is what those who wish to dominate and control us want. This is what they want. Does anyone disagree with that? This is what they want. They don't win because they're more powerful. They win because they're convinced us that we're powerless while using our own power against us. I would say especially for those of us that consider ourselves truthers, voluntarists, health freedom advocates, whatever you want to consider yourself, because we're actually doing the things to make ourselves more coherent physically. A lot of us, there's only a few of us who are pretty consistent. We need to get those numbers up. That's okay. But the point is, I would argue that our ability to co-create, to bring forth that which is inside of us metaphysically into this physical experience, we have a higher capacity for that. So if we're one of those people who are trying to shove it down everyone's throats, like we need to wake up, Agenda 2030 is coming, just like sending reel after reel and meme after meme and all these things, is that actually effective? Is being glued to your phone, worrying about what's going on halfway across the world perpetually effective? I'm not saying to ignore it, spiritually bypass it, pretend it's not happening. That's not what I'm saying to do. I talk about those things, but I try to check myself on not getting sucked into those things, on helping to co-create those things, because I've learned all this. Because this is what they want. They want us thinking about that and then projecting it into this experience. Well, we could be doing that. Who clapped? Go ahead and clap. I like that. Yeah, that's good. Clap for yourself. So yes, do the physical things, do the practical things. But again, I would argue that our beliefs, thoughts, and feelings are causal vectors. Our thought energy is a causal vector with respect to reality. Yeah, so be aware of what others are consciously, unconsciously co-creating. Speak up and speak out about it, but don't feed it your thought energy. There's a fine line. Am I perfect? Nope, I'm not. But I try to check myself, and I have friends and family that hold me accountable and check me. So maybe find a buddy to check you as well. Really reflect on, is this going to bring more coherence to the world? Me arguing with someone, calling them a piece of shit? Or is this going to bring more chaos and discord to the world? Okay. I want to say one more thing about self-ownership real quick, and I may have a slide coming up on it. So Carrie and I have talked about this before. We actually did a podcast on it, and Derek and I have talked about this a little bit too. There's a subset of people within voluntarist, anarchist spaces who get it on the statist ideology and the indoctrination and get that we want to have self-ownership, right? We want only voluntary interactions between us and any other individual or entity, right? And get that self-ownership is about having ownership over my own body and my property and then my family's as well. But self-ownership, I would argue, and this is a big piece missing in a lot of voluntarist anarchist circles, not as much here, but in a lot of other circles. And maybe you know someone like this, or maybe you've been like this yourself, or maybe I'm calling you out right now, that don't get that you also must own your own beliefs, thoughts, feelings, words, and actions. Self-ownership is not only about owning your bodily autonomy and your property, it's about owning those things and being accountable for those things and what you're putting into the world. Okay, so I guess you could say this is the inverse of mass psychogenic illness, mass social contagion, those examples that I gave earlier, mass nocebo effect, group coherence impacting reality. Also called the Maharishi effect or the unified field effect. Let me go to those. I don't want you guys to see that. Okay, here we go. Actually, we'll go to these first. So On the thought, sorry, my slides are a little bit out of order. I don't know how that happened. On the thought that there's just a small group of us and there's so many more of them, there's not enough people awake. What are we going to do? We're just a small minority. I would argue that we have much more of an impact than we could possibly know. So, Veda, that lady I mentioned earlier that does those experiments with water, has also done some experiments with eggs. So for my US-based peeps, we know that free range means jack shit, and we're actually talking about pasture-raised eggs. And even then, with Vital Farms and all the info about them having 23% of the same acid that's in seed oil, like, I don't know, but the point still stands. When Veda cracks open a pasture-raised egg and freezes the albumin, which is the clear, runny part of the egg, she finds this on the left. Might be a little bit hard to see. Can you zoom in just a little bit more? Is that possible? Or maybe I could zoom in on my side. Okay, let me do that. Okay. This is what the albumin of a free-range or pasture-raised egg looks like. So this is the albumin of an egg coming from a hen who is raised as hens are supposed to be raised, right? Versus when she cracks open a caged egg and freezes the albumin. So an egg coming from a chicken that was pumped with hormones, antibiotics, in perpetual fight or flight, fed an unnatural diet under artificial lights, pumped with vaccines. This is what it looks like. So I think you can see the clear difference between the two, right? You guys able to see that okay? Okay. So Veda did an experiment where she took one pasture-raised egg and surrounded it with 12 caged eggs. And she took one of the pasture-raised eggs from the same batch, set it to the side, cracked it open, froze the albumin, and this is what it looked like. Took one caged egg from the same batch, cracked it open, froze the albumin, and this is what it looked like. So you see the clear difference in the two, right? You guys see that? Okay. So she left them in this orientation overnight. And this is the results when she cracked open all the eggs and froze the albumin. Every single one of the caged eggs had improved in their crystallography, visible to the naked eye, just by being in proximity to one pasture-raised egg. Visible to the naked eye. And here's left to right, that middle row. So there's one of the caged eggs, and you remember what it's supposed to look like. There's another one of the caged eggs. There's a pasture-raised egg. There's another caged egg. There's another caged egg. And then she did it again because someone was like, oh yeah, well, you can't repeat it. And she got the exact same results again. Again, pasture-raised egg, caged egg there. Just by being in proximity to one pasture-raised egg, the caged eggs all improved in their crystallography, visible to the naked eye. So this is a principle of electromagnetism. Strong coherent field overtakes and entrains weaker incoherent fields. You be, yes, but you be the pasture-raised human or free range. Maybe we'll say pasture-raised. Who said that? Do you? Yeah. Not only that, of course, because it amplifies, but you be the pasture-raised human. You be that where you are. Yeah. Okay, so going back to the Maharishi effect. So how does this whole thing that we're talking about, I think you see where I'm going, how does this apply to human beings? Okay. So in the summer of 1933, 4,000 individuals gathered in Washington, D.C. to meditate daily for nearly 2 months. And the purpose was to test whether focused collective intention could measurably reduce violent crime in the city. By the end of the trial, violent crime had dropped by 23% compared to projected rates, despite seasonal trends suggesting it should have increased. The effects scaled with the size of the meditation group, and statistical analysis ruled out all other major external variables like weather, policing, and historical trends. The result wasn't just significant, it was astronomical. So anytime you get a p-value of 0.05 or less, that means there's a high statistical significance. This p-value was 0.000000, how many zeros? 2. So indicating that the odds of chance were near zero. So violent crime reduced by 23% because 4,000 individuals got coherent. I don't think it is exclusive to transcendental meditation, although I do believe that is a powerful thing. But what I'm getting at here is being coherent, existing as a coherent human being, going about your day in a coherent way. And again, are we perfect? No, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. So this one, I think I deleted my Kansas. No, there's the Kansas City slide. Okay. So this one, again, they repeated the same thing. From 1988 to 1992, Merseyside, UK became an unintentional laboratory for one of the most striking long-term coherence effects ever recorded. A dedicated group of meditators consistently exceeded the predicted threshold needed to impact the wider population. In the first year alone, crime dropped by 13.4%. But that was just the beginning. Over the next 4 years, crime steadily declined, ending up 40% below what standard projections had anticipated. In total, researchers estimated 255,000 fewer crimes occurred than expected. Conventional factors, again, like weather, demographics, policing strategies, etc., were examined and ruled out, and the only consistent variable across that time was the continued presence of the coherence group. And then this has been, I could give you dozens and dozens and dozens of examples of this. Another one in Kansas City. Within 2 years, crime dropped by 30% compared to surrounding regions. When compared to other nearby suburbs, the decrease was even greater, 36.3% lower than expected. The shift was, again, statistically significant. And again, anything under 0.05 is statistically significant. And no major changes in policing, demographics, or economics would explain the drop. The only distinguishing factor during that period was the steady presence of a coherence creating meditation group. Okay, so if you have watched my no virus presentations and things like that, I want to be clear here because people will be like, oh, are you saying that that is for sure the causal mechanism? No, of course not. This has not been conclusively demonstrated. But I would say all indications point towards it being a very, very, very strong factor if you're picking up what I'm putting down. Does that make sense? Cool. Thanks for the clap. Okay. And if that doesn't convince you enough, there's a guy by the name of David Hawkins who's come up with a map of consciousness. And he says that all it takes is one person operating at love, which on his scale, here's his scale. Could you zoom in? I'll zoom in again. You see that? Okay. So all it takes is one person operating at, oh, you want to screenshot it? Here, I'll pull it back up. Okay, I'm sorry. Let me zoom out a little bit. Can you guys see the whole thing? Does it show shame at the bottom and enlightenment at the top? Okay, cool. Got it? Okay, so according to David Hawkins, all it takes is one person operating at love, or level 500, to counterbalance 750,000 people below level 200. All it takes is one operating at peace to offset 10 million people below 200. And one operating enlightenment. You'd probably almost be a rainbow body living in a cave or like a monk at this point. I'm not saying there's not enlightened people at this event. That's not what I'm saying. But to get there, I'm talking dudes that can levitate and stuff. I don't know. Daniel has some pretty good tricks that he can do. But it takes one person operating enlightenment to neutralize the negativity of 70 million people. Okay, this is the important point. Your mind will play tricks, but the way you feel in your heart and your guts is the truth. So Veda has shown a number of times, and I asked her this when I interviewed her for my podcast, just to clarify, that when you're thinking one thing and feeling another thing, what is picked up in the water? And if I remember correctly, I'll paraphrase what she said. Essentially, what you're feeling is what's picked up in the water, not what you're thinking. When you align your thought and feeling together, that has a strong impact on the water. But the point that I'm getting at is, a lot of us might be sitting here listening to this talk and saying, yeah, I get that, but I'm just really fucking struggling. I feel angry. I lived in California, and I'm a single mom of 3 kids, and like SB 276 and 277 before COVID, I had to pull my kids out of school. I can't afford to homeschool. I'm fucking mad. I'm mad. Be mad. Feel that shit. I actually think that chronic anxiety and chronic depression and any of the other chronic symptoms are the result of not going deep enough into that feeling, of not feeling it, of turning to our phone to, that's fucking tough to feel. I'll just consume more rage content and then a funny reel. Oh, that dude was shot in the head. Oh, shit, that's happening. Oh, that cat, that's hilarious. Like, that is so fucked up for our psyche. Like, that is insane. If you really think about that, that is insane. We're not meant for that. But the point is, like, be mad. Feel that shit. I think so many of us turn to our devices, yes, to be aware of what's going on in the world, but because we are turning away from feeling something that we don't want to feel. I know I've done that before. Have any of you guys? I've fucking done that. Absolutely. But on the back end of just sitting with that shit and feeling it is gold. Gold. I think so many of us get caught up in all these rabbit holes. We know about Epstein, all this shit. Why are we even focusing on that anymore? We know, yes, it's good. Like people like me and Derek with platforms and other people in here, like there's people that are still learning that stuff. So I think it's okay to touch on it sometimes. And even for you, like, oh, that's another piece of the rabbit hole. But how many of us really are looking at that shit because we're distracting ourselves from feeling something in our daily lives? Yeah. So feel it, but don't become it. Let it flow through you like water. And there are plenty of other resources I could share if you want to come talk to me afterwards on how to really feel that thing, how to move into deep, deep, deep forgiveness of self for any of your wrongdoings, for any of your trespasses against your fellow men and women, brothers and sisters, but also to forgive others. So for me, like, yeah, COVID was incredibly traumatic, but COVID was a gift. I was a fucking army officer before COVID. I was already awake to shit. I knew I was getting out, but like, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was like, am I going to go be a chiropractor? Am I going to be a massage therapist? I don't know what I'm going to do. Then COVID happened, and now I'm standing here talking to you guys. It was a gift. It was a gift. Same with the Great Reset. It is a gift. Agenda 2030 looming in 4 years or whatever it is. That is a gift. Because it is inviting you to recognize it as a catalyst to go deeper, deeper, deeper into yourself and let the light shine out of you. Let it pour out of you, each and every one of you. This one gets me every time. Man, whether Jesus existed or not, I've gone down all the rabbit holes, trust me. I personally do believe after going down the rabbit holes that he did and that he was killed on the cross. But whether or not this story is true is irrelevant because it's the point of the story. After he had been whipped, tortured, carried across miles, asked for water, they gave him vinegar instead, was nailed to the cross. Those who tormented him, those who persecuted him wrongfully on the cross, he said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they're doing. One of the greatest acts of compassion and understanding for people who literally tortured him and persecuted him and drug his name through the mud in front of everyone. Can you come to a deep place of forgiveness for yourself and for others with what you've gone through? Can you do that? I think you can. I think we all can. I think on the other side of that forgiveness is a deep love and compassion because they know not what they do. And yeah, maybe Klaus Schwab and some of these actors know exactly what they're doing. I'm sure they do. I'm sure there are some examples where people do know exactly what they're doing. But it's ultimately misguided. And it ultimately, again, can be a fucking gift for us. Everything that they're doing. This image speaks so much to me. If you could zoom in on that. This is you. This is your true childlike essence. A little white boy with brown hair. I'm kidding. But you get the point of the picture. Who you truly are is directly connected to the God of all creation, the creator, the one mind, whatever you want to call it, the universal essence, the universal sound. That's who you truly are inside of you. And your ability to be coherent, to do those daily things that I talked about earlier, to not be consumed by what's going on in the world, but to transmute it, to recognize it as a gift, and to come in such a deep sense of coherence and forgive yourself and forgive others. Love yourself and love others. Have compassion for those who can't see. Your ability to do that has a tremendous impact on the world, and you come back to your true childlike essence and you remember who you are. And when we cultivate coherence, take ownership of our beliefs, thoughts, feelings, words, and actions, and remember who we are, the waters of our bodies become more coherent, and that entrains the whole world. We help the world become more coherent, literally, just by virtue of our existence. And that is how we change the world. So this is no longer an empty, hollow platitude. This is a real thing. Everything I just shared about water and all that, and you being comprised of water, the fourth phase water thing that I shared earlier, the examples of the Maharishi effect, the examples of mass psychogenic illness, mass social contagion. This is not a platitude. This is real. Change yourself, and you have done your part in changing the world. Thank you, guys.
Our power is in our voice. Our power, it's in our thoughts. Our power is in our actions. Our power, it's already innate in who we are. We are the earth. We are the sky. We are the trees. We are our ancestors. We are the future generations. We are all that is. Our power is in our voice. Our power, it's in our thoughts. Our power is in our actions. Our power, it's already innate in who we are. We are the earth. We are the sky. We are the trees. We are our ancestors. We are the future generations. We are all that is. Our power is in our voice. Our power, it's in our thoughts. Our power is in our actions. Our power, it's already innate in who we are. We are the earth. We are the sky. We are the trees. We are our ancestors. We are the future generations. We are all that is.